yo ya sé que es de ti. I got to stay away, got to stay away. Sé que como un trofeo quieres tenerme, pero I don't need no one. Que yo ya sé que es de ti. I got to stay away, got to stay away. No, 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 baby, no, 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 no setbacks. No, 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 baby, no, 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 this time. You broke my heart once again. I won't buy the dust in return. I can't give in, I can't give in. I won't give in this time. You broke my heart once again. Well, you're bad, but you're bad for me. I can't give in, I can't give in. I've already run with the wolves. Far from the light of the day. I can't go back to you. I'm stronger today. Been to the dark side of the moon. So if you wanna shoot far away, I won't go back to you. I'm stronger, I'm stronger, I'm stronger today. I'm stronger today. I've been trying to fight the demons in my mind. I'll prevail with every battle if I'm right. Guess my aim was off, the target's out of sight. Would I be better if I left it all behind? 'Cause we could find a way, we could find a way. Find another place where we can just escape. We could find a way, we could find a way. Find another place where we can just escape. We could find a way. We could find a way, we could find a way. Find another place where we can just escape. We could find a way, we could find a way. Find another place where we can just escape. We could find a Just take my hand. We'll leave this place behind. No
Hello?
second
You're super quiet for some reason.
Um,
That's better.
I don't know. Okay.
How are you doing, Steph?
I'm okay.
How was your week?
Um, How was my week? How was my week? I don't know. I feel a little scattered. How are you?
I'm okay. I feel a little scattered. Kagero says
Excellent.
Hi, Nebu. Hi, Steph.
Hey, Kagero.
Let me share my screen with you. Did you read my 20-page paper on what's it called? It's COVID vaccine hesitancy.
I did not.
Did you apply for what's it called? The social scientist results in Anthropic?
I did not.
Did you? What else did I ask you to do? I don't remember.
Mostly because it's for a senior quantitative analysis and analyst, and quantitative is in quotes.
No, that's something else.
Oh,
That's
awesome.
the joke thing.
Oh, gotcha. Also, I've been at a conference this week, so
No excuses.
no excuses.
What was the conference about?
Nothing.
Nothing. That's my favorite topic
Yeah.
of conferences. I love when I go to conferences and they're not about anything.
Yeah. It wasn't supposed to be about nothing, but, you know.
But it
That
turns
happens
out to be about
sometimes.
nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been studying trivia lately. I've been using this app to address my what's the word? General knowledge.
Okay.
So it has like history questions, geography questions, things like that.
Okay.
And one of the things was it said complete the quote, with great power comes great. And then
Responsibility.
yeah, who said that?
With great power comes great responsibility. Who said that? I don't know.
Not so easy, is it?
No.
I said
Do
Spider-Man.
I get choices?
But
Did that turn out to be right?
no, it turns out it was Voltaire.
Yeah, yeah.
Ben, right? I think Kagero was making the same joke as me because I believe Spider-Man's uncle's name's Ben.
Nice.
I don't know their last name. I presume it's Riley. Gary says, so Steph, a Seinfeld gathering. Are you George? Are you a George or an Elaine?
What?
I guess because your conference was about nothing, and the meme is like Seinfeld is about nothing or something like that.
Gotcha.
Which
Right.
actually is a bit of a pet peeve of mine. I don't like that people immediately jump to Seinfeld whenever they think of nothing, as opposed to like nihilism, say. But maybe
Right.
that's too highbrow. I don't know.
It is a bunch of psychobabble.
The good kind, or
not-
like
No.
the kind that
No, unfortunately, no.
I got a couple memes here. I can go through.
Okay.
Here's the first one. Think, is it truthful?
Mm-hmm.
Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it kind? And is it necessary?
Mm-hmm.
The mnemonic is so you use each letter to remember the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they got it wrong. You're not even reacting to my memes. See,
What
Luigi
is-
got it.
Oh, because kind and necessary are backwards.
Yeah. Where's my mouse? Here
Does
it
that
is.
make it untruthful?
And also unhelpful and uninspiring.
I think it's pretty inspiring. Like somebody who doesn't know the alphabet made this. That's delightful.
Actually, let me try something. I want to, like, Luigio's here. Welcome in, Luigio. Luigio says, I like how they just swapped it. They unnecessarily swapped it. It's not even that the letters don't add up. Yeah.
Right.
But I think I got a new bot that's supposed to do shoutouts, so let's see how if it works or not. Looks like it didn't work. Well, oh well. The Harmony bot is still there, but there was supposed to be a different bot that's supposed to also do a shoutout thing, but it didn't do it. Let's see. So we did this meme. Here's the next meme. This might be hard to see. I don't know if we need to zoom in a bit.
My professionals, please. Oops. Bummer.
Please add .ca after logo so it reads myprofessionals.ca. That's the
The fine print.
yeah, the comments, the slogan, I guess, that you fill in on the
Right.
website where you type in what you want your thing to say.
Yeah. There's a website called Cake Rex that documents all the bad cakes in the world that have been made, and
Rex like
several of them.
WRECKS, not like REX,
Right.
which I was
And
excited about. To you,
yeah. Oh. Some of them are just your standard icing disasters, decorating fails, but some of them are similar to that, where it'll say like,
yeah, Luigi
you know,
has an example. Like
Oh,
they just put the word, just make it fancy on
Right.
the cake.
right on the cake, exactly.
How about this one?
I was reading.
I don't know how easy this one is
I'm
to
reading
see.
some Bill Bryson, and apparently that was a common problem in colonial America when they had to order everything from England. They would have to send instructions to their agents in England to purchase items. There were some complex tax situation where everything that the colonists bought had to be purchased in England, made and purchased in England. So even though they had materials, they weren't really allowed to create factories. So they had to send to England for everything. And often they would, say like, I want it to look like this. I want these plates that have this decoration on it. And they'd try and draw what they wanted. And it would come back with like the arrows that they'd drawn, highlighting things, and the words like, make sure it looks like this. And
Yeah,
it's funny to me
make sure
that
it has
it's such
.ca
an
at
old
the end
problem. Yeah,
for my
exactly.
website.
Right. Let's see. Oh no, that's not. Don't order that.
Why not? We were just talking about the
Doesn't
replication
seem
crisis. Was it last
Right.
stream or the stream before? I don't know. We probably talk about every stream.
Probably, yeah, probably this stream before.
And for those who don't know, the Wuhan Institute of Virology is one of the suspected sources of the coronavirus.
Coronavirus 19.
Yeah. I haven't seen one till 18.
We'll make it right, or we'll make it right. That's a great tagline.
Number of people who drowned by falling through. This is what Luigi sent me, and films Nicolas Cage appeared in.
Yeah.
Strong
correlate
correlation.
surprisingly well.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So we should get Cage to stop making films.
Obviously.
Like 4 films causes 120 drownings. Look at that.
I know. It's like
Crazy.
30 drownings per film.
Yeah. I guess it's a deal like that t-shirt is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
Do people sneeze from COVID? I thought they mainly cough.
I think the symptoms changed weekly.
Okay, let's see. What's this one? Well, let's do an easy meme one again first before we go into the more serious stuff. Although this is a trend, like it's getting more serious here. This is world GDP over the last 2 millennia.
Okay.
So like it's basically 0 at 1 BC or 1 AD, and like
Yeah.
a lot now. And the person who's here living in this era has this comment: "My life is pretty typical. Have a good grasp of what is normal versus weird, and people imagining very different futures with digital people and AI or in space, or indulging themselves in silly sci-fi speculation." It's the idea, I guess, that normalcy
Weird
bias.
countries are weird.
Like your life looks a certain way, and you imagine it's just going to keep looking that way, even though recently, like, everything has been accelerating. Like, things have been changing way faster than in any previous era of history.
Right.
I don't know how young or old people the viewers are necessarily, but like to try to relate, there's people alive today who predate the widespread adoptions of personal computers. Like, not everyone had a family computer in their home.
Why are you calling me out like that?
And then widespread adoption of the internet. Like, not everyone had the internet at home. And
Some of us went through high school without it.
Yeah, and not everyone had a smartphone. And then ChatGPT. So within one lifetime, right? Like, no computers to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
That's how fast things are changing.
Like, it's hard to explain. Like, we didn't have Google Maps. Like, you had a landline.
Yeah, a physical map. Like a book, an atlas, right. I guess.
Like a book. Yeah.
Like, on different, it's like for America, say, so like different pages of like different parts of America.
Different states, yeah.
So you gotta find the page, like if you're going on the road trip, you find the page.
You were
that's
going
relevant.
on a road trip. You went to this organization called AAA, which still exists. But one of the services that they did, if you were a AAA member, is they would make you something called a triptych. And so my friend and I drove.
Isn't that when you
triptych.
Pull out your hair or something like that?
No, it's
mania.
It's when you do a viral pratfall on TikTok. No, and so a friend of mine and I drove across the country. We drove across twice, actually. We drove out to college, and then we drove her from where we went to college in Massachusetts to Stanford in California. So we did 2 cross-country trips, and both times we used a triptych. And so you write to AAA and you say, here's where we're starting, here's where we're finishing. And they send you this spiral-bound book of maps.
So when you say they send you, you mean like they mail you
in the mail?
Yeah, like 6 weeks later, or what? Like,
yes, yeah, like a couple of weeks later. Like, you got to do this in advance. You got to write to them, tell them where you're going. You can also call. Yeah, exactly. And they send you a map, and each page of the map, it's about the size of like a reporter's notebook, so like a 3 by 5 maybe, but with 3, like instead of a 3 by 5 card, like rotate it, and each page of the map covers maybe like 50 or 100 miles, I'm not sure, probably 50, and then you would have to flip to the next one, and some poor soul working at AAA will have taken an actual manual highlighter and highlighted the route that you're supposed to draw, that you're supposed to drive. And it would be this like flip book of maps. And then like when you got to the next, like when you got off that map, you'd turn to the next page and there would be your route highlighted on that.
I can't believe they did this. Like, how much would that cost to mail people these
It was
these booklets?
free. It was free to members. How much would it
cost them as a corporation, right? Like, that's crazy.
I mean, that's what your fee covered.
How much is the fee? Like $100 a month or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Isn't that a lot?
Probably. But like you also got roadside assistance or something like that. If you do triptych and you do an image search, it will show you what this looks like.
Cryptic? Cryptic.
Yeah, TIK, like TikTok.
Like this. So you're flipping through the book.
That's what they look like. Yes. Yeah. And that's literally somebody using an orange highlighter to say this is the road you should drive on.
Oh, like this part, this orange thing. Somebody's job is
Yeah.
to like figure out where you're going and then
Yes. Yes. And to be like, keep driving on I-5. Like, you had to be able to read a map well enough to understand how that works. Like, you're not always driving north, so you had to kind of know that. And, like, it would show you major cities. It would have suggested rest stops and restaurants and hotels and things like that along the way. You can see there's kind of some text. Like, that's how you planned trips.
yeah. I'm trying to think what else do we have or not have, I guess,
Payphones?
rather. Payphones, yep. Because you might not have a cell phone. Like that wasn't that didn't exist.
You did not
that
have a
wasn't
cell
invented
phone.
yet.
It's not like you might not have it yet.
So if you were like
did
out
not
and
have
about, like at the park or whatever. By the way, we used to have things called parks where
Yeah, we did have
there's like
parks, right?
green
Yeah.
grass that you could go to for free.
Right.
um,
We had shopping malls. That's where a lot of the cell phones were.
once they got invented,
Yeah. Sorry, not cell phones, payphones.
right? Chucker says, "I have a payphone, like on your block or like in your apartment or what?" Like, and Kagro, you said you had an Atari 2600. That's. I don't think I've had anything that old. Radio Shack, yeah, in my garage. Like,
Radio Shack.
does it work or is it just like a trophy, Chucker? Your payphone. This is when I was little. I had an Atari 2600. Also, yeah, like, so if you played video games and you didn't know how to beat it, like, because there's no internet, right? So like, you like
There's no walkthrough.
You can't look up what you're supposed to do. Yeah.
And you probably, like, only the cool kids had the video games. Like, you had to go over to their house
To play video games with them.
and see if they were home.
Well, you would probably call first, right?
We wouldn't.
I would call first, and then it's
You would-
like their mom answers, and then I immediately hang up because I don't want to talk to the mom. You know, like
We would literally.
because to remind, there's one, like, it's a phone in the house, right? It's not like
Right.
one person's phone; it's the family's
No.
phone. So you never know who's like which family member is going to pick up the phone when you called.
So, and people probably know that when, before that, you would pick up the phone and there was this thing called a party line
Oh,
where
that's
like 20
predates
different
me.
families. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So
I
this
only
is pretty
learned about that
old. So
recently.
20. Okay. So 20 different families would share a phone. And you'd have like your own dedicated operator, and you'd get on the phone and you'd say something like, operator, can you give me this phone number? And she would transfer you over to that. But there could be other people on the phone at the same time who could hear what you were saying. Like if they just happened to pick up the phone in their house, like you shared the line. If you wanted to call someone else and they were already on your line, you were just sort of out of luck. But I was reading recently that when Alexander Graham Bell first invented the phone, he didn't think to put any kind of ringing, a bell or anything like that on it. So the only way to know if someone was trying to call you was to pick up the phone
And
to
listen,
see if someone happened to be there. Yeah. Like you just had to pick it up a couple of times a day or hour or something and see
so
if
you're
somebody
calling
was
someone, you just sit there for like an hour and you hope that they
Hang out,
pick it
yeah.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I assume you mostly had a servant do it because this would have been the time when phones were not widely affordable, but like wow.
strategy guides. Kagero mentions, yeah, you could go to, like, if your game was popular enough, you might find a strategy guide for it, like in a magazine store or something
Again,
like
this
that.
was a book.
Yeah, like, so you go to the physical store because there's no internet,
Right.
and there's like racks of magazines, and there's like section, you know, like there's like magazines about guns, magazines about cars or whatever, and then magazines about video games, and then you look for it in that section, and you're like, is there something about the game that I'm playing? Because it's not
Right.
like, because there's a lot of games and there's only so much shelf space, right? So they're not gonna stock every book about every video game out there.
I was at a friend's house the other day, and it's an old friend of mine from high school, and she had this really cool bookshelf, and I was complimenting her on this cool. It was like kind of it was designed to look like a card catalog at a library. Oh God, you guys don't even know what card catalogs are. Fuck. So a card catalog is how you knew what was in the library. It was these
This
drawers
is before
full of
computers.
these. Right. It was these drawers full of cards. I was going to say it's like a Rolodex, but they don't know what that is either. Okay, so it's this card. These drawers full of these cards, and the cards would say what the book was, where it was organized in the library, and would also tell you if it was there or not. Because when somebody checked out the book, they would put a little card in there to tell you that the book was checked out. So you would find out, like, oh, here's the Dewey Decimal number, and here's where it is in this library, and whether or not it's been checked out. And then if you checked it out, I think you put the card in there yourself at some libraries. So it was designed to look like that, and it was really cool and old-fashioned and interesting. But it actually had much bigger drawers than this because of the way it was designed. And she opened one of them and was like, oh yeah, this is where I organize my DVD collection. And I was like, oh right, people still have collections of DVDs.
DVD is like a disc, a little plastic disc that would contain data. It's like an external
But it had a
drive,
movie on
but
it.
you can only
Right.
write to it once. So people would like choose a movie in advance, make a DVD of that movie, and then when you want to watch a movie, you could then put the DVD into your computer. Because the computer had like a slot
people
that the DVD would
still
go
know-
into.
I think people know DVDs,
Do they?
right? Like they may not know that we had to get them at Blockbuster, but
Do people know
I
what
think they
DVDs
know
are?
DVDs. I think so.
Because
Like,
like it's been a
when-
while.
it's not-
Like
Right, but it's not as bad as like rewritable computer CDs or like floppy disks or something like that.
Kago says, have your Rolodex in front of your rear view mirror so you can look up numbers for your bag phone? What?
Right?
I don't
Yeah,
understand
because
the
you would-
sentence.
Some of the early cell phones came in like they were so big that they came with like in sort of a carrying case.
Yeah, like
with
a
a strap?
briefcase. Yeah.
Right. Like you couldn't even really take it out of the carrying case. Like it was just always in that.
Here, this is probably.
Yeah, there, like that. And it would, right? And it's in a bag.
Well, because that houses
It
all the
just was
components,
always
right?
like that. It houses all the components,
radio
right.
or whatever it is, and then the battery and.
And that's what early car phones looked like.
But I feel like only like like super fancy salesmen who are traveling from doing
Right.
deals
My
out of
friend
state
who
or
I
whatever.
drove across the country with, she had a very early car phone years later because she worked for the Red Cross and was like an emergency responder, basically. And so she had one of those, and we were all like, oh my God, that is ridiculous. Like, how could you possibly, like, who are you even going to call?
You're just waiting on the line for the servant to pick up on the other end.
But like that was back in the day when you used phones to make calls.
Yeah, a phone, by the way. I guess they know this. I'm sure the people still know that phones, like, nominally are for making phone calls, even though in practice
so,
that's
yeah.
not what people do with them.
Right. I was listening to a comedian the other day who
I
was
think they
talking
know
about
because
how
like there's an app called Phone, right, on your
well,
phone.
called phone. Exactly. That's what the joke the comedian said is that a phone is now just a rarely used app on my phone.
Yeah.
But I don't think they know what a dial tone is.
Maybe not. Yeah. I don't know if there's.
I don't
how
know that
often.
they understand why we say hang up. Right? Do they understand why we say rewind?
Probably. Maybe. No, maybe not. Like
Rewind is old.
because I'm thinking like if you use a media player, right? Like there's still a rewind
Yeah.
button. Like, but people don't
Right,
even
but do
use
they
media
know
players.
why? Yeah.
Like,
right.
They use Spotify or something like that, right? Like, which doesn't have a
Right.
rewind button.
What do they? I mean, I think it's you still say rewind if you're like if you're
Oh, if
rewinding
watching a
on
movie,
YouTube or
maybe.
something like
Yeah,
that.
and then you want to go
Yeah.
back.
But I don't think they know why it's called rewinding.
Chucker says, "Who even answers the phone anymore?" True.
Right?
There's like
I know.
that article about a guy who went hiking and he got lost, and the emergency rescue was trying
Yeah.
to call him, but he didn't answer because he didn't
Like
recognize
multiple
the number.
times. He was like, I don't know this number.
So he's not answering, and so he's lost for
Somebody
like
trying
24
to like,
hours or something like that.
I'm lost. I don't have
Instead
time
of
to
only 2
answer
hours.
if I'm gonna vote for Trump. Yeah.
Karo says, "I don't know that people know when to call collect or long distance." Yeah, so call and collect would require you to know about. Is call and collect only a concept for payphones, or does it exist
Yeah.
outside of payphones?
No, like I guess long distance used to cost money.
Yeah, can you call collect a long distance call? Like with a normal phone, like in like,
You used to be able, like you used
Okay.
to do that, right? Like if you were staying in a hotel, you could only make local calls.
yeah,
And so if you wanted to call home to your family, it would cost more, or you could call collect. You could call your family collect. And what you'd do instead is when you're supposed to record your name, you're like
You would
it's
just
this
give
little
the
beep
message
so
that
you
you're
can
trying
record your
to.
name. You would just give the message. You just be like, "Got here fine," you know, hang up, and then the other person would be like, "Would you like to accept a collect call from Got Here Fine?" And then they'd say no, and so you could get away with it that way. But I think you still can call collect from prison. So if you've been to prison, you might know how that works.
Here's 1-800-collect. Yeah, you have to memorize. Is the number 1-800 collect? I guess it must be. You have to memorize a number that you dial, and then you dial the number you actually want to dial. Like
Every payphone had the number for a the local number for a collect call on there.
but like it would be
Or you could use
vandalized or something
1-800
like that,
collect, yeah.
right? Like
It would often, yeah, exactly. That's why 1-800 collect like worked so hard to get that number.
right.
I was reading about a sort of related concept, which is that people used to really care about their internet address, right? Like it was really important to get business.com because
It still
that's how
is
you
to-
would
to
get
some
found.
degree, I think.
To some degree, but nowhere near, right? Nowadays, it's not really that important. And some of the like a part of what you would try to do, like phone numbers used to also be really important to have something catchy. And part of what you would try and do is have it spell out a word, like 1-800-Flowers.
Yeah.
But nowadays, like many phones don't actually have the little numbers on them. So it can kind of become a liability. They don't have the letter number correspondence
Yeah.
on them.
1-800 cookies. Says
Remember when
Kagero.
Right. Do you remember when the first phones came out that you could text on? And to text, you would have to like push the number 9 or 7 or whatever it was, like 4 times to get an
Yes.
S.
Hey, Kiwi. Let me try to find There's gotta be a Nokia somewhere in here.
Yeah. Yeah, look at that bad boy. Yep, that's what our cell phones look
So
like.
if you want to type hello, you see there's an H here, right, under the 4, but it says GHI. So you have to press 4 twice. First time you press it, does G, then you press it again, then it switches the G to an H.
Right.
Now you're ready to press the second letter for E for hello, so which is under 3 here. So you press 3, which puts a D. Then you press it again, and the D becomes an E. Actually,
Right.
I don't even remember, how do you get two, like if you put 2 L's, how do you do that?
You just do it twice.
No, because if you do,
Yeah, if you waited, if you held
wait,
it down
and then
or
it'll go
something
to the
like
next
that, it
one or
would.
something like
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. You waited or held it down or something like that.
Because I don't even remember how that worked anymore.
Right.
Q says, I thought we were
I know,
stopping World War III. Yeah, it's on my list of things to talk about, but we got diverted, so we're talking about this first. Yes, you need to press 4 times on 7, as Kiwi points out.
Yeah. Yep.
And this symbol here, this is space, so you 0. To separate
This was
your
part of the
words.
reason that we kind of invented,
Lead speak, I guess.
shorten. Yeah, exactly. LOL.
Because no, who the fuck is
Oh,
gonna type
LOL
laugh
is
out loud
internet,
on this
I think.
shit?
Right.
Like,
It took forever to send a text.
well, which is fine because you could only send like 10 characters max or something like that for text message. Like,
Right. And also, like,
because this screen only
every
shows
single
like,
one you got.
10 characters per line and 4 lines, I think. Like the screen's
And
not
you
on
would
here,
actually
but you could.
Get charged per text that you sent, and your phone bill would include every text you sent.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes.
Like the text of the text you sent.
I don't remember that because probably I was the one paying for my text messages, but.
Right.
Garrett is hanging out
There
at
were
the
some-
media play near the Showbiz Pizza.
Yeah.
And Kiwi says, I remember playing Snake on one of these back in the day.
Oh yeah. It had that game. The one.
It had, I feel like I had 3 or 4 games, but Snake was the only good one. Like the others were shit, you know?
Oh goodness. Did it?
That's, I feel like it. This is not. I guess Nokia is a company that also releases games, so.
Right. That's rough.
Oh, here we go, an AI. Snakes. Yeah, bounce, that's it. Which is basically like, you know, like the. Fuck, what's
Oh, Pong.
Yeah, but like with bricks.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
This I never remember cricket. Oh, only available on certain Nokia models. And Sudoku definitely we did not have on mine.
No.
So I don't know how accurate this is.
And definitely not Tetris. Tetris eventually, but not.
Because remember the display is only like 80 pixels
An
or
inch
something
square.
like
It's
that.
the size of a
Yeah,
postage stamp.
So you can't really get too fancy like games there. We didn't have Sudoku back in the day. Is bounce just break out acronym? Yeah, I think so. Oh wait, it says here you guide a balloon or ball through obstacles, including robots. I don't remember that. I feel like breakout
Yeah,
arcanine
either.
is more likely.
Not sure how accurate this is.
Yeah, you can't always trust AI.
I've heard that. I don't believe it, but I've heard it.
And AI told me that.
Mm-hmm.
I got this. I don't know if I want to read this an excerpt from an article here. I'm trying to figure out how to summarize it. But the basic idea is when you put your money in a bank account or in the stock market or something like that, you get some interest back, right? Like they pay you for borrowing your money, basically. And the reason they're borrowing your money is because they think they have a business idea that they can execute on, right? Like if I want to borrow $1 million to start a company because I think I'm going to make $10 million in the company. So they borrow the money to build factories or businesses or whatever. But like they used to, like people used to build borrow money to build like an iPod factory to make, like Apple used to do that, right? To make iPods, but they don't do that anymore because nobody buys iPods anymore. And so the key idea is that there has to be a demand for borrowing in order to get any interest on your deposits. Because if nobody's going to borrow, then the banks can't make any money lending to anyone, and then they're not going to pay you any interest in return. And there's this idea that because population growth is slowing, the expected demands for goods and services is going down, which decreases the incentive for businesses to invest and grow, right? Like there's not going to be customers to buy your products or consume their services. So I think the current estimate is that world population is going to peak around 2080 is one of the estimates I've seen. And then like a lot of lessons about like what to do with your money are probably gonna not make sense anymore at that point. Like passively, store your money in the stock market to make to become wealthy over time. That type of advice.
Okay.
So seems pretty scary to me. And in addition to
we won't be around then.
Global warming and things like that. I think
we won't be around then, though.
I think it's plausible that I might still be alive in 2080. Like it's unlikely, but plausible.
Nope. How old will you be in 2080?
Yeah, I don't want to dox myself too much. But like there have been like the age that I would be at 2080 is an age that other humans have attained.
I'm trying to do the math. Let's see.
Well, okay, so look, roughly, the oldest person is like 100 and something, right?
That's true. It's true.
So
I
then
guess
if you're born 1980
it's
or
plausible.
later, then
You're
it's
very
plausible
young.
that you can reach 2080.
Right. I don't think you'll still be borrowing money.
No, but like
build
the
things.
economy is gonna be fucked up, right? If like there's it's
Not right away.
Well, in anticipation, because like investing in the stock market is in theory at least, assuming the market is rational, a hypothesis about the future earnings of the company, right? Like if you think that the
So you
company
think
has
this
no
is going to
future,
start
yes.
affecting things before?
Yeah, people are
I
like,
see.
oh, there's actually not going to be any profit in like business in general anymore. Let's cash out all our money and spend it, now on hookers or whatever, because there is no economy anymore. Like,
Right.
then that might affect you before 2080. Yeah,
But the oldest profession will still be around.
I guess.
That's where we're spending all our money. Hookers.
Yes.
That's a term people still use. Yeah.
I got another financial one. No, I'm gonna skip this one. I don't want to do too many financial ones. Let's talk about this one.
Do you have like a list that we're all looking at?
No, it's off
Or
screen. I don't have.
When you
I'm
say
not
let's
showing.
talk about the okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's like the war in Ukraine with Russia and all that. So we're getting to the
Great.
World War III topics here.
Okay.
It says here, we know people. It's a quote. It's quoting Andriy Yermak, Zelensky's powerful chief of staff. He says,
Okay.
we know people are flagging, and we hear it from regional governors and from the people themselves. Some Yermak and his boss traveled together to some of the most dangerous places to rally citizens and soldiers for the fight. So the idea is, like, at least from one source I heard, it seems like Ukraine is losing now. They're running out of like ammunition and things like that to stop the Russian invasion. And so Ukrainians are like fleeing the country and not like avoid the military draft, so that they're not so they don't have to fight on the front lines and things like that. So this guy Zelensky and Yermak are going around and telling people to fight, and your name will be in the history books. We tell people, and my reaction to that is like, it's not right. Like I'm a nobody. My name's not going to be in the history book. It's your name, like as the general or whatever, that's going to be in the history book. So it seems like a very backfiery type of messaging to me, right? If somebody came, if a general came to my town, it's like, you should fight for the war because your name will be in the history book. It immediately sets up my bullshit detector.
I'm not certain that you are their target audience.
But I might be typical bind fallacy here, but like, isn't that what everyone's gonna think? Like, my name's not gonna be in the history book. Your name as a general might be, but my name isn't.
I think if you were the typical person, many, many wars in the past would not have been fought.
Sure. But like, the way I see in popular media is that most people don't want to fight in wars, right? Like, everybody's trying to dodge a draft almost.
Well, currently, maybe, but in the past, it was kind of one of the few ways you could advance. There wasn't as much of a meritocracy, and to have any opportunity, you would have to go to war. Like, you were taking a pretty big chance that you might not come home, but if you did, you would have status and experience that might get you promoted and possibly wealth, etc.
I thought it was mainly a no viable alternative type of thing. Like, the same reason people become pirates, like on the high seas, is because like, you got to eat, you have no money, you're gonna starve to death. So like, this is a job that you can do, become a pirate. This is a job you can do, become a soldier in the war.
Not often. Certainly, trying to find the line between having no alternatives and thinking it's a good idea to do for your own advancement, like, that's a pretty thin line, right?
Yeah.
Like, it probably wouldn't have been attractive if there wasn't both carrot and stick, because it's a huge risk, right? So there would need to be pretty high, a lot of different types of incentives. But the idea that it is sweet and noble to die for one's country
Was popular.
was popular, and often the hope was that you would somehow be one of the people who didn't die. But if you did, you would get a monument to you, and your family would be taken care of, and you would know
I
that you
guess
had
back in the day,
your
might have thought
afterlife
that.
would be, yeah.
But I feel like if you're in Ukraine, you're not thinking, well, even if I die, my family will be taken care of. Like, that's not your thought process, I would think.
It isn't mine, but I'm not there, so I don't know how well it plays locally. I am not personally, I don't have a lot of nationalism personally. Like, if somebody tried to take over the United States, I would be like, oh, that really, really sucks for me, and also I'm going to go somewhere else. Like, I
Canada
don't,
or something.
yeah, I'm just not super nationalistic somehow. But many, many other people are. A lot of people feel great pride in where they live, even though they had nothing to do with it, and nationalistic messages get them to make enormous sacrifices. I think people still join the army in the United States for pride related.
When there's no war, like I think it's one of those like no good alternatives / carrot thing, right? Where I think like if you get they'll pay for your education, for example, like a college degree if you join the army. So you're like, there's no other way I'm gonna get the college, so I'm gonna join the army. But as soon as there's a war, you're like,
though,
you're like, oh, I just injured myself. I shot myself in the foot. I can't go to war. You know, like.
I think in some families it's considered a proud thing to do, a good thing to do. A lot of people who serve re-up multiple times.
Interesting.
All of World War I certainly was a bunch of, I mean, some of it was that they truly didn't appreciate the likelihood that they were going to die. They thought, oh, we'll just lick the other guys and be back in a couple months. But the idea was like, you will be known far and wide for your bravery, and the few people who do die will be, will have been heroes and stuff like that. Yeah. So somehow it works as a message for people. We also you and I are not very collectivist.
Well, I'm also trying to think in terms of like just expected outcome. Like this idea that everyone thinks they're gonna win. Like if I'm going to the war, I'm gonna kick the other guy's butt and I'll be famous. Like the other guy's thinking that too, right? Like the enemy on the other team is. So and you can't both be right. So.
Yeah.
So that makes me lower my confidence that I will win. Like, because I'm like, wait, we both have the mindset, but one of us is wrong. And so then, what's the probability that it's me that's wrong? And so I'm doing all of this, like,
right. But obviously that
isn't,
it's obviously not what most people are thinking, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Like most people who get involved in these things must be thinking, we know they literally are thinking, I'm going to win. That's why I mean, I don't think these messages are for you and me.
I just thought that, this idea that we were gonna win, like I'm gonna kick the other guy's ass, is an old idea, like you're saying, and so it's like not reflective of what people think nowadays, but maybe it still is. I don't know.
I think it's a young person's idea. I don't know.
Oh, you're calling me old now.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess there is this trend for teenagers to underestimate their mortality, I guess. Try drink and drive and things like that, and do a lot of dangerous stuff. Gyro says, Canada, fight for the beaver, the moose, maple syrup. Oh man, I hope Canada doesn't get involved in the war that's about to come up. Yeah, I was doing I was gonna say doing therapy, but that's not accurate. I was talking to my doctor about medication. They're doing the questionnaire and they're asking me about if I'm anxious about anything. And I'm like, yeah, like World War III, I'm anxious about.
Oh, I don't know why I just remembered now, but I wanted to ask, what's this trivia app that you're doing?
I think it's called Brainscape or something like that. I'm doing a couple. Right. Brainscape is like general trivia. I've been using one called Yuno, YUNO, which is almost entirely American history, it seems.
Okay.
And speaking of American history, there's a bunch of things where it's like they say here's what happens, and I think the implication is, and America is great, but I'm hearing this and I'm like, this sounds like pretty bad behavior, like they went onto some guy's boat and took all his tea and threw it into the harbor, and I'm like, I'm imagining myself as the merchant, right? And I'm like, I have nothing to do with the fucking British. Why are you throwing my tea? Like, how is this? Why am I suffering as a tea merchant because you don't like Great Britain? You know, like.
We often talk about the Tea Party as if it was sort of a minor act of vandalism, but it was, in today's money, millions of dollars worth of tea.
Yeah, like he can go out of business at this point, and like, you know, his family stars and shit. You know, like.
Well, it wasn't just one merchant, but it was. They also tarred and feathered the guy who was responsible for imposing the tea tax. He actually got tarred and feathered twice. After the first time, they moved him to a different location, and he got tarred and feathered there. He finally wrote to the crown and said, "Can I please come home?" And they finally let him. But tarring and feathering was a horrible, painful process that people would sometimes
hot,
die
right?
from.
Like it's
tar is
it's
hot,
burning
yeah.
you, yeah.
Yeah. It was horrible. But Britain was imposing truly unconscionable taxes and making life very, very, very miserable for the colonists, really treating them not just like second-class citizens, but treating them like like a colony, right? Which they were a colony then, but just as a source of natural resources that the locals would be stupid enough to cut down for them and send over, and then they would take all the natural resources to England and make things out of them, and then because the colonies weren't really allowed to make anything for themselves, they basically then had a captive audience, and so the Americans couldn't even really they didn't have anywhere else to shop from. They had to get it from England, and it would come at incredibly expensive prices. England would send its crap, the stuff that wasn't selling domestically, and then they charged hugely extortionate taxes. There was a saying in England at the time, like when they would produce sort of shoddy goods that weren't selling in the local market, there was a saying that was like good enough for America. They would send the garbage over,
Yeah.
and then tax it really horribly, etc. And there was no redress for the colonists because they didn't have the right to vote, really, which was the argument about taxation without representation. So they engaged in a variety of pretty shocking vandalism acts to protest this. And as you might imagine, the crown really didn't like it, and then that all led to the war. It's not like Britain was like, "Oh, you just threw our stuff into the harbor, and that one merchant had a bad day." Like it was truly shocking acts. Many in America also thought it was well over the line, but it was seen as a necessary, desperate act, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's often portrayed in a very cartoonish, like all of it is sort of portrayed as like, oh, these guys had a funny war party and they threw some stuff out, and then the British had I don't know, some reaction to it, and it was a party, and isn't America great?
The party, yeah.
It's like, what? Yeah.
The Boston Tea Party. Hey, Jubilee.
Yeah.
Why are we preventing World War III? Yeah, why? Like, that's the wrong question to ask. Why wouldn't you prevent World War III?
Why aren't you giving these boys the chance to be written about in the history books?
Speaking of
why do you want to deny them their place?
Yeah, I was thinking like.
Hey, Jubilee, it's been a while.
The when I was working at this computer programming company, like there was like the company values or whatever that the CEO drafted, I guess.
Yeah.
And one of them was under commit over deliver.
I bet you thought that was awesome.
I mean, it was like taking literally, it's fine. Like,
okay.
I'm but like things weren't going well. Like, we were the deadlines and overtime and all. So then the CEO comes over. It's a relatively small company, so that you wouldn't like it. Like everyone has met the CEO in person at some point. He has this talk about, what are we going to do to fix all this, and he's like, now we're going to change the mode to overcommit and over deliver. And I'm like, oh my god, that's like the worst message, because everyone's like exhausted from the overtime work that they have to do.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of like the naivety, the lack of empathy, the blindness of what's going on the floor, and that's the comparison to the Ukraine situation, where the guy's like, don't worry, we're all going to be in the history books, when only he's going to be in the history book.
Right. I thought a very similar thing when Elon Musk bought Twitter and was just like, I only want people to work here if they're extremely hardcore. And I guess
so everyone's like, bye.
Yeah, right. Like I get the idea that like if you want to keep a job there, you have to do what the CEO says, but he seemed to think that that was somehow like inspirational, or that like people would be like, yeah, I want to be super hardcore for this random company that I work for, that just got bought by some guy I don't know.
I can see that happening,
right?
like,
and it seemed to have a
if you're working for, I mean, even electric cars, you could see like, I'm trying to save the environment, right? Or like AI, like
maybe a value, right?
Sort of that thing, like where I want to apply to Anthropic to save the world from AI. But for tweeting, like I'm like,
yeah, yeah. But also, it's a similar thing. Like if you work at a electric car company, you personally are not going to be in the history books for having saved the environment.
Yeah.
Right?
But you might still believe in the cause.
You might. And I think that maybe some of that talk is that the talk that Zelensky and his chief of staff are doing. I think that might be a synecdoche for you. This cause is worthy. This cause will go down in the history books. Like, you might not, but this cause is so important that someday people will write about it, and you will have had a part in it.
Right.
Right? It's similar to, you're not going to be mentioned for this creating, saving the planet with electric vehicles, but the cause is important enough that somebody will write about it, and you will have been a part of it.
Somebody will write about me, and you work for me, so...
Right. So be extremely hardcore. Put your life on the line. Let's go. Yeah.
Julie redeems Save a Child's Life in Real Life. Every time someone does that, we donate $5 to the Against Malaria Foundation, which provides mosquito nets to children at risk of malaria. So you just save a child's life in real life. And Jubilee also redeem Hydrate and Stretch. So we gotta take a sip of our liquids. And stretch. One of the we talked, I guess, 2 streams ago about how I said like a lot of people, like the general public, seems to have a negative view of EA, and you were like, or effective altruism, and you're like, that's probably just my bubble, my social bubble, and like most people don't know or don't care about EA. Mm-hmm. So there was this article, I think it was in Wired magazine, that was criticizing EA, and it was just so infuriating.
Yeah,
because the guy was like, those malaria nets that people are distributing to people in Africa. It's like those can be used by fishing, and it harms the fish, and I'm like. And
I saw that article and was wondering if you had seen it also. Which you had.
Effective altruism, Jubilee. It's a philosophy, I guess. The idea is like, if you're gonna give to charity, like, or if you're gonna do something good, like it might be worth spending time to think about how to do so most effectively. Like, rather than donating, let's say, like. Rather than donating to Harvard, right, who probably has like a ton of enough money to pay all their teachers anyway, and they're not going to do anything with their money except maybe build another statue or something like that. Maybe donate it to Africa, where like that same amount of money will go further. That type of thinking.
We also tend to donate emotionally. So you hear about one kid somewhere who's suffering, and you might donate to that person suffering, when maybe your money could have gone to a whole, program that would actually have helped many more people in, maybe bigger or small ways. So it's specifically trying to counter that type of emotional way that we tend to decide who should get our hard-earned money.
So that Wired article was specifically the thing I was referencing last time when we talked about when I said like they're like EA has a
Okay.
bad
Yeah.
rep sometimes. So like the fact that you
I
read
didn't
it
see that article.
implies
I
my
didn't see it
position, which is that
until
it is more widely shared and not just in my bubble. Although you are part of my bubble, so
right. Exactly. I didn't see it until after we talked, and like I felt like the internet was sending it to me specifically because we had
talked about
yeah
it. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know that it negates my theory that it's part of your bubble.
I got this PowerPoint presentation by a startup, Mentava.
Accelerating human achievement.
Highest achieving kids are being held back. So I don't know, like San Francisco and Seattle are like, yeah, here it says that ending accelerated math and gifted programs.
Okay.
Which I don't know. Are you familiar with that? I guess you might be.
I did know that. Yeah.
So that's background knowledge for this, like, but that's not what Mentava is specifically about.
Okay.
Independent accelerated learning. 2-year-olds can learn to read. 4-year-olds are teaching themselves second grade math. +2 years of curriculum learned in a year, calendar year, in just 30 minutes a day. I think this is here. This is aspirational, where like the check mark is what they've gotten, and then the non-check mark is what they're aiming for. Mm-hmm. 2 years reading at second grade level, costs less than private school. $5,000 for Mentava versus $30,000 for private school. Yeah. So, Steph, you're in education. What do you think?
So, content seems to be the least tricky part of the puzzle. We let's see how to explain that. So most content is now actually widely available. On the internet, people can teach themselves anything. There's plenty of options available to learn really advanced level math, calculus, history, etc. There's lots and lots of stuff out there. And when it all became available, we thought it was going to have this huge impact on education, right? The fact that like everybody could, you can now get basically all of Stanford's classes for free online. And it turns out that it doesn't seem to help. It hasn't drastically increased what kids know. If anything, it seems to have reduced it for the average kid. And some small percentage of kids can learn huge amounts of content really easily, and yet it doesn't seem to be leading to geniuses in ways that we thought. If you compare the number of like people you would consider a genius now versus people who you would consider a genius 100 years ago, that number of geniuses now should be, since the population's like eight
Or
times bigger,
yeah.
it should be 8 times bigger. And in fact, that doesn't seem to be the case, and it seems to be getting worse. It used to be the case that most startup founders, for example, were under 30, and now they're not, even though they should be the most risk-taking and know the most and have had the access to the most information to make them autodidacts. And people are trying to figure out why that's the case. Research that I have been reading, or theorists that I have been reading, have really been talking about how it isn't the content that's the problem. It is true that you could teach 3-year-olds to read at a second grade level if they have some aptitude in learning. But that doesn't really seem to be what produces genius or what produces problem solvers. It really seems to be a process of people from different ages having a mentoring or tutoring type relationship with an individual. So, for example, most of the geniuses from the 18th century, or even the 15th and 16th and 17th century, were aristocratically tutored. So some famous-ish in his own right kind of person would be paid a lot of money to teach the wealthy sons, and in some cases daughters, as a live-in tutor, really steeping them in a sort of Socratic method, rich conversation, guiding their learning in the course of an authentic relationship. Usually the tutor was someone that the individual looked up to. Preschool, though, in high-quality preschools works the same way. It's usually slightly older children and teachers who have these really rich conversations, these really sophisticated dyadic talks about knowledge and how the world works, and then sort of guiding them towards kind of finding the content themselves, that seem to be what we're missing. And so the people who are trying to solve the problem that humans seem to be getting dumber despite all the knowledge that are available, are probably focusing too much on content as the bottleneck, but it doesn't actually seem to be the content. You can get a 4th grader to learn Algebra 1, but they won't actually become a genius who thought about and followed their own ideas in interesting, innovative ways unless they're embedded in some sort of relationship with one or more slightly to much older people who can engage them in that kind of nurturing, tutoring, contextually sophisticated type relationship.
Teresa, it's probably because they're like, I don't need to remember that. I can just look it up on Google for math stuff, I guess.
There is an argument. There is an argument for that as well, that we are either, Nicholas Carr puts it, Google is making us stupid. Other people have had a more generous interpretation and said we're actually sort of becoming hybrid with our machines. We're using them as thinking tools in the same way that we use pen and pencil or calculators. Writing
helps us think.
That it helps us think, right? So those are also two possible arguments, that we are outsourcing. The young kids today are like, the fact that they know less might actually be the species adapting. Right. That they might actually be making the smart decision.
Always been quote unquote fine with not knowing history or geography, because I know I can, if ever it comes up, I can just look it up. I can just Google it. what is the capital of Australia or whatever.
Canberra.
Yeah, that's one of the trivia ones. Like it's a flashcard system with space repetition. So every time I'm like Canberra, and it's like nope. Canberra, nope. And I'm always like 80% there, but I can't remember the freaking thing. I've been actually studying, reteaching myself calculus lately, because I can't remember if it's
because of the questions that we got asked recently.
I don't think so. What questions did we get asked recently?
We were asked questions about, we were asked to solve an equation.
Oh no, you're asking I think you're referring to the time when they said Funkitron said find the minimum of a graph or something like that. Yeah.
And also asking a lot of questions of like, will you ever need this information later in life?
Yeah. I mean, finding the minimum of a graph, you can use calculus to help you with that, but in that specific question, I could just eyeball it, right? Like I just draw the graph and I look at it and I say, yep, there's the minimum. So I didn't need calculus, so that wasn't why. And I've been reteaching myself calculus, actually predating that question. It's because I've been reading a lot on relativity and quantum physics, and I don't remember which one, but one of them was like, it was all these formulas and like, okay, I can't follow along. I need to brush up on my calculus because I'm not able to follow the arguments that they're making.
That is similar to why Newton invented calculus.
Yep. Although he did for Newtonian physics, for lack of a better name.
Yeah.
Which is a bit simpler than relativity and quantum physics. But yeah. But
well, it wasn't simpler at the time.
He is like truly brilliant, right? Like imagine coming up with like Newtonian physics, but calculus doesn't exist yet. So you're like you're making it up as you go along, and that's insane.
Right.
Like,
yeah. He also was like a very, very, very strange man.
He believed there was something magic about 7, which is why he said there were 7 colors when he did the prism stuff, and like there were 7 musical notes or something like that, and maybe he was also like
super into alchemy.
There were 7 planets maybe at the time. I don't remember for sure.
Oh, probably, yeah.
So he's like, so 7 is the number of God, and everything, all the universe's secrets will come out of 7. Things like that, yeah.
Yeah, he was super into alchemy. He spent lots and lots of his time trying to do that. Sometimes he would poke himself in the eye with a needle to like figure out some optics question.
Okay.
Everyone thought he was really, really strange. He never married, or even got close to, as far as we know, he never like actually talked to someone that he could plausibly have been attacked. I don't want to like maybe he was gay, but like he never talked to a man either. He never had a close friend.
He's also kind of a jerk from what I've heard. Like very
also a jerk.
Arrogant,
Yes, 100%. Yep.
Very mean to people. Yep. Like he was. I think it sounded like he was worried about people stealing his ideas, because he did get into a fight with someone else who also apparently independently invented calculus, and he was like, but I was first.
Horrible fight. Yeah, exactly. Like he wasn't in any way polite. Like he held a grudge for like 50 years, and
And the thing is, if I remember correctly, so Newton was rich, right? Like because like the aristocrats gave him money or something. I don't know the exact details, but he was rich. So the other guy kind of got hounded, like because Newton could pay people to like abuse the other guy who also came up with calculus.
He was like not a nice person.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was reading a theory, recently, kind of talking about why it's a good idea to be a little bit crazy. Maybe you have to be not a nice person, or at least a different person to be able to come up with stuff like that.
It's a very interesting topic, I think, because there is this idea like a lot of geniuses are weird and and I think
Antisocial in some way. Yeah.
it plays into the just world fallacy also, of like, if you're super smart, you're not as good at something else. You know, like it could be a social thing. In the case of Stephen Hawking, you might say, you know, because he was physically disabled, you know, like that somehow was a necessary component for him to become that smart. And but it's not true, I think, because there are like, I think Richard Feynman is a famous counterexample. Very, very smart.
Sure.
Physically attractive. You know, had a lot of success romantically. Very socially charismatic. He just like, you know, no downsides. He was just like a perfect guy in a sense.
Yeah, I think it was less the theories that I were reading were less like. It's an interesting criticism that you said that like maybe that's a sort of justification that people use to help them sleep at night. But I was just sort of reading it more as you might have an easier time criticizing the status quo and things like that if you care less about it. You might have an easier time starting a cult if you are paranoid and see visions. Right, you might.
Yeah.
Right, they're just. It's more just like certain ways that you're very different. Most of the time are not going to work out, but occasionally they may produce the oddity that, in the right circumstance, ends up advancing human thought quite a bit.
Yeah.
Or, you know, devancing it, whatever the word for that is, in the sense of like religious visions and things like that.
Well, I think it's something to do like, so there's innate talent, like some people are just born geniuses, right?
Right.
And then there's drive, right? Like how much effort are you going to put into like figuring out calculus, for example?
Right. Right.
And I think like,
my answer is not very much, and
well,
yeah.
It's if you have both, those are the people who are going to become world famous geniuses, right? If you have just one but not the other,
maybe
then maybe you can get pretty high,
lucky
maybe
in
not.
a bunch of other ways. Yeah.
But so then if you're the people who have like super obsessive drives are more likely to be weird, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So
and also have a lot of free time on their hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of that, like Newton being strange, or like, you know, like these common anecdotes about like this guy would like studied a math problem in isolation for 50 years, publishes a paper that solves, you know, something that nobody's ever figured out before, refuses the prize, you know, like, we're going to give you $1 million for saying this. He's like, I don't want it. And then doesn't do any interviews, and then just disappears into Russia, never to speak to anyone ever again, you know, like.
Right. And I suppose like we did just mention drive, and then I kind of was like joking, and you also have to have a lot of free time on your hands, but being weird would also probably give you a lot of that free time, right? Like, well, Newton may not have been
in the other direction. Like, if you're like driven, you're gonna make the time to work on this problem. Like, you're gonna give up your social life. You're not gonna play video games, you know.
Maybe, but I think it's easier to give those things up if you're odd. If you have less opportunity, less, you find it less rewarding. You're much more able to push back against society and say, no, I'm not going to do those things. In the case of like someone who's rich, it was often considered like a family duty to marry, and like you had many dependents in your family who required the money that you would get from getting married and then passing on your estate and things like that. And you might have to be kind of weird to be able to say, yeah, I don't care, I'm not doing that anyway.
Right.
Which would give you more free time, but...
Hey, Tuhil, welcome in. Let me scroll with chat a bit to see. So Julie says, I have discovered that you have to be a naughty, nice person to keep yourself going in most jobs as well. For instance, I've recently told my tenants that I have been a nice landlord for too long. I'm allowing people to slide past the rules and not cracking down on things. I just told one of my tenants, no more Mrs. Nice Landlady. There was actually, I saw an article recently about teachers are lots of teachers are quitting teaching because of there's a culture shift, or maybe even like a governmental policy of like not enforcing rules, like not punishing students who do the wrong thing, talk back in class, things like that. And
students are getting they come to school less regulated, yeah. And parents complain a lot more and interfere a lot more. Part of what would get really stressful about my job is just how much the idea of parenting no longer exists. Like parenting like with some authority or trying to help your kid gain some regulation skills. Like now it's all just about getting them diagnosed with something so that you can continue
they can break all the
to
rules,
accommodate. Yeah.
and not get in trouble for it.
I mean, it's not like these kids are happy or breaking the rules. It's just more that like they get unhappy if they are asked to tolerate any kind of distress, and the parents can't tolerate any kind of distress, and so they can't tolerate their kids' distress. And so they just want to take any stressful situation away from the child, such as, like having to be nice to a teacher, or even just having a teacher they don't
like
really like.
Just going through school anyway.
Right. Going to school even on days when you don't necessarily feel like it, things like that. And really, like, much of my entire profession has either implicitly or quite overtly become just diagnosing kids so that they can continue to get accommodation so that they don't have to quote unquote tolerate distress, which actually is like making them quite miserable, but I'm not sure what the end game is. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But yes, it is affecting the teaching profession quite a bit, and they don't make very much money at all. So what they are expected to put up with and do in their off hours, and I can't even imagine.
I'm reading through chat here, so I try to catch up. Tuyo says, Judy says, no work on Friday. Tuyo says, thankfully, no, have a couple of days off, then gonna hit it hard for inventory. The coming week should be a good time. Judy says, we have inventory the last week of May. I feel your pain. Tuyo, thankfully, inventory where I work isn't too terrible. We only have to count back stock in the back room areas. We have a company come in and do the rest, just lots of back of the house management stuff that I have to do to get ready for it. Judy says, quite the opposite for our company. We've just got an inventory system, so we're starting from the ground up. Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
We were talking about, there was like a moment where I was going to relate it back to this slide that we're looking at, but I think I missed it a little bit. But like, there's a selection bias going on with this this startup, Mentava, sorry, is what they're called. Because first of all, like as a parent, if you're enrolling your kid in this, you care about your kid's education, because some parents don't, right, really care or don't know what to do about it. So you're more likely to give that one-on-one thing that you were talking about, right? Like one-on-one attention to the kid, helping them understand how what they're learning relates to creating a model of the world that they can use to predict the future and be successful and things like that. And also, like, it's still $5,000, right? This Mentava thing. So it's still like kind of rich, a little bit of a rich parent. Who are going to be doing this thing.
Yeah. There's actually some old research that's often cited on the benefits of being like super gifted, like being 4 standard deviations above the mean instead of just 3 standard deviations, and how that's actually associated with better life outcomes but that research all has a really similar bias problem. The research, the researchers that looked into this were so like impressed with their precocious little subjects that they gave them just tons of extra opportunity. And they had parents who sought out those extra opportunities and took advantage of those programs. And most of these were very rich families already. And so all of that research is similarly biased. So it leads to some really interesting, there's a lot of debate about what to do with quote unquote gifted kids in education, which is part of why Seattle and those other states are getting rid of gifted education, is that there's a lot of discussion where parents are like, my kid is, a super gifted, super, and needs all this extra stimulation to become a super genius based on all this research. And then the schools are countering with other research that says your kid will probably be fine whether or not we give them anything, because you're going to give them a bunch of stuff, including your connections and wealth. And it seems to disadvantage everyone else at the expense of your child, who's actually going to be fine anyway.
That's interesting,
So
because
that's why
I did want to touch on like from my naive perspective, as someone who doesn't know anything about how education works, I was like, why would you hold back your smartest kids, right? Like, these are the people that you want researching vaccines and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying,
yeah,
that the reason is because that kid would have turned out fine anyway, and doing the thing, and I don't know exactly what the thing is yet, and we can get into that, would disadvantage the other kids.
exactly.
So what is the thing? Like, I thought it was just like, if they're have a class for like advanced math, and have a different class for standard math, and then have some kids like go into the different classes depending on how they perform on the test or something like that.
Yes. So there are kind of two forms. There's doing that just for a single class, which is often called acceleration or enrichment. And then there is like substantially separate classrooms. So like I went to a gifted program where I was just only with other gifted kids all day, all the time, and never in a regular classroom once I was placed in that program. Washington State doesn't do that anymore at all, but they did have like accelerated math classes. And it turns out that what that often does is it siphons resources away from the less advantaged children. Obviously, teachers want to teach the gifted classes where the students are more precocious and often richer, and not always, right? I didn't grow up rich, but often better behaved and more interested in learning, and learn more quickly, take less effort, that sort of thing. So all your best teachers go into that program. All your best parents, quote unquote, go into that program. That's what they devote their resources to. And so it siphons things away from other kids. It also siphons all your best students who could actually solidify their own learning and help other kids along by being the content experts in a certain area. It seems to be helpful, especially for the less advantaged students, but to some extent for the gifted students, to have them still in the classroom as opposed to off on their own. And it is really unfair to students who are late bloomers, or going through stress, or didn't test well, or just sort of didn't get identified. It actually causes some gaming of the system. So a lot of white and Asian parents want their children to be identified as gifted, and they will basically get the child tested until magically he scores as gifted. Whereas less advantaged families don't know how to make that happen, and those students are often less likely to be identified as gifted anyway. And so you're taking white kids and some Asian kids who probably already have lots of resources and lots of opportunities and will be fine, and getting very little benefit by putting them into these classes. It doesn't seem to help their outcomes that much. It might reduce their boredom a little bit, but it doesn't seem to create these super geniuses, and it really disadvantages the rest of the school. So that's the argument, at least. Gifted classes changed my life, so I have complex feelings about
I was
it.
about to say,
I got
true
expelled.
though, when you say that's the argument. Like,
exactly. I got expelled from like 7 different schools between or classrooms between kindergarten and 2nd grade because I was so bored and all of that kind of stuff. I didn't understand my teachers or my fellow students, and started to hate school and learning and all of that. And so it made a world of difference for me. And I assume it makes a world of difference for some other students who were similar to me in the sense of I didn't have parents who, like, I wasn't going to be fine if I wasn't in those classes. People may know my mother had schizophrenia, and we were often homeless or things like that, and there was just a lot going on in my family. I wouldn't have been fine without that. So I have complex, probably irrational feelings about. I loved my classes, but the research is firmly on the side of abolishing gifted programs. So
interesting. I did not know that. Because, like, to me, like, just again, it's just naively. It sounds like there's this called
sounds good, right?
Teaching to the level or something like that. Teaching to the right level,
right?
Which is like it became an acronym because apparently that's a slogan or something like that. TARL. And I think they were mainly talking about almost in the opposite direction, but it seemed like it would extend to this situation. But the opposite direction, what I mean is they were doing studies about education in developing countries, and they were saying, like, in some places they're teaching to the curriculum. Like, if you're in 2nd grade, then we assume that you know first grade stuff. I'm going to teach you 2nd grade stuff. But the kids might not know first grade stuff. Like, everyone's coming into the school system at different levels. In developing countries, like, they might not have ever had gone to school before, for example.
Right.
And so the idea is, like, if you just teach them, like, at the grade that they're in, they might be not getting anything out of it because they don't have the foundational knowledge. Like, the idea is, like, they don't know how to do addition yet, and you're teaching them division. They're just going to get lost, and they're not going to be able to. They won't learn division at that point. So the idea is, like, the study says we should do TARL, teaching at the right level, as Julie says. So that's, like, in one direction, and then to me, it just seems that would make sense in the opposite direction of, like, if the guy's smart, teach him at the smart level. Don't teach him at the average level.
Yeah, the problem with teach at the right level is that, like, the research doesn't work. We've spent tons and tons and tons of time trying to create things that teach at the exact level that people need and that respond to it, and, like, trying to use AI to do it, and trying to use machine learning, and have these leveled readers at school where you know exactly what level you're on, and you're getting material that exactly challenges you there. And you'd think by now we would have cracked education and everybody would be a content genius. And it turns out that, again, curriculum doesn't seem to be the bottleneck. It seems to be relationally driven. And part of that relationship actually is having kids who know more than you guide you along, and having kids who know less than you who require you to explain what you know, which helps you identify gaps in your learning, helps solidify it. Richard Feynman famously is known for that Feynman technique, where you the best
Try
way
to
to learn is
explain
to
something.
try to explain exactly. And so that actually seems better for gifted kids. Um, and
Does anyone do that?
yeah.
I cannot remember ever in school being asked to explain something to another student.
So we don't do it anymore. It used to be done quite a bit in one-room schoolhouses, right? There was only one teacher, and in order to teach students at every single grade level, a lot of times the younger children would be paired with an older child or a child who'd mastered that particular subject matter. It wasn't quite as much age, or like the idea that somebody might know something more than you. He'd probably
It's
been to
not
school
necessarily
more than
correlate
you,
to
right?
age.
Exactly. Or even necessarily known to be an indicator of your IQ. Kids miss school for all kinds of reasons. Then, so you just may not have that. This might be your first year of school, even though you're 16. So you might be being taught by a 4-year-old, and nobody would necessarily think that was weird or that you were dumb. It would be like, well, you were helping with the harvest every year previously. And so students spent quite a bit of time teaching concepts to other students. And it seemed to work better as a model for creating problem solvers. It's hard to, directly compare educational outcomes from then to now, because we now have universal education and a much more diverse and big populace and all that kind of stuff. But if you go back and look at, if you try and take a test from 1890 on any subject you like, you will absolutely fail it. You will not believe what fifth graders or whatever knew, that you still as an adult do not know.
I don't believe you. Wait, let me look it up. What, 1850 you said?
I said 1890, but sure.
1890? Math tests. I'm getting a thing where it's like, it says, please disable your ad blocker. And I'm like, fuck you. Okay, and before I get to that, let me catch our chat. So Julie says, so I agree with you, Steph. Children don't know how to handle stress, and it starts from the parents. The parents can't handle their own stress due to the society we live in, and therefore try to make things super easy at home, or make things really bad for the kids, not teaching them how to learn from the pain as we used to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I totally understand the forces that are causing it to happen, but it just feels like such a slow motion tragedy that we don't, I don't know, I'm not sure how we get out of it. It's rough, isn't it?
Julia says, fun side note about this, I was going through a box of my childhood stuff my mom gave me, and I found these letters, and it invites to some kind of leadership program for top performing kids in school. We didn't have the money to send me, though. It's the first time I remember seeing or hearing about it, though. Wonder what went wrong along the way.
Yeah, the gifted program seems to really disadvantage kids like that whose parents don't know or don't want or can't afford, or are less psychological or less achievement oriented, or distrustful, all that kind of stuff. Because then those kids aren't identified as gifted and don't get the best teachers and don't get the best curriculum. It also kind of creates a self-fulfilling prophecy in a bad way. So teachers who were told that the students they had been identified by an IQ test as late bloomers and who were going to have a huge growth spurt in IQ. They were just told that would happen, And then when those kids were tested later, they really had actually gained quite a lot of IQ points. But the feedback actually had just been made up. They
The
were selected at
teacher
random.
behaved differently
Yeah.
because of what they
The teachers
believed
behave
about the
differently
students.
because of what exactly. So if you believe you don't have the gifted students as a teacher, that is not great for those students.
Judy says, Steph, there's also the issue of money. Poor families can't have the parents available to help them with learning, where more middle class or wealthy can get more one-on-one time with the parents.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So the kids who get selected into gifted programs are the kids who have all those things in most cases already, or at least disproportionately so. So you're helping with special resources and the best teachers and, you know, all of that stuff. You're helping the kids who need it the least
I guess like
at the expense of the kids who need it the most.
yeah, but to me the core question in my mind that would determine, you know, is this a good idea or a bad idea? Because I'm a utilitarian, is the question of like, so what's the final utility score of both strategies?
That
Right,
is a great question, and
like-
unfortunately, we don't really know. It turns out like your placement doesn't seem to matter at all. We have a very, very hard time getting educational outcomes to move at all. It seems like almost any program that we come up with, any new pedagogy, any new charter school that has this amazing idea for what to do, independent learning, supervised learning, unlearning, like none of it seems to matter.
Matter in
Which is
terms of what, like in terms of life outcomes or in terms of
outcomes.
educational attainment?
Both.
Because like that seems self-contradictory gosh darn it, to me, because I thought we were saying even if we help the gifted students attain higher, they still don't get better life outcomes. But like, if to make that statement, that means the gifted kids did obtain higher academically, right? Or else if they didn't
Say
obtain
again?
higher, then we don't have data on whether or not obtaining higher academically leads to better life outcomes.
I don't understand what you're saying. Sorry.
There's at least two metrics at play here, right? One of them is academic attainment, and
Okay.
there's overall life outcomes, like in terms of like how much money you make, I guess.
Okay.
And it's either the case that these interventions make no difference to both metrics, like, you know, like, so there's no change in academic attainment and life outcomes, or it's the case that it makes difference to at least one of them, right? Like, that's tautological what I just said, right?
It either makes a difference or doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to make a statement like, even if you even though it raises your academic attainment, that still doesn't lead to better life outcomes. Like, that's a claim that someone made. To make that claim, it had to have made a difference in terms of academic attainment, right? Or
It
else
depends.
you would not have observed any students with academic attainment differences such that you could like have data on that claim.
I still can't follow. I'm so sorry.
I'm not explaining it well.
Okay.
I don't know if I can do a diagram. I'm gonna do like the 2x2 grid of, like, you know, all the possible cases of attainment and outcomes.
Okay.
So I don't even know how to spell attainment. Here's attainment. And here's outcomes. and then this is like, does make a difference to attainment, doesn't make a difference to attainment, doesn't make a difference to outcome, does make a difference to outcome. If someone makes the claim, better attainment, I'm just gonna write the word claim because I don't want to write out the full thing. If someone makes the claim better attainment doesn't lead to better outcomes, you had to have students in this bucket or else you would not have data that would support that claim.
That's the part I can't follow. You would have had to have students in that bucket.
Yeah, because if you had no students in the bucket of better attainment but no change in outcomes, then how would you know that better attainment doesn't lead to no outcome?
This is the part I just can't, I can't wrap my head around what this means. I want to, but I can't do it.
I'm trying to think of an analogy. How about smoking and cancer?
Okay.
Here's smoking, here's cancer. If you make a claim like smoking doesn't cause cancer, no, like I guess smoking does cause cancer. Let's say someone wants to claim that smoking does cause cancer. In order to make that claim, you would have to find someone who smoked and then got cancer, right?
Okay.
If you have nobody in this bucket where like nobody's ever smoked and then got cancer, then how could you make the claim that smoking caused cancer?
You wouldn't be very likely to have that as your hypothesis if you didn't know anybody who had both smoked and
got cancer.
Had cancer. That wouldn't be your hypothesis.
Right. So, but aren't people making the claim that even if you get high academic attainment, you still don't get better life outcomes? Like people have made that claim, right?
So we know that scoring highly, qualifying for a gifted program, is associated with better life outcomes. If you qualify at all, like if you get the IQ test score that qualifies you, or your teacher, in some states it's teacher nomination, if your teacher happens to nominate you and say, I think this kid is gifted, we know that your life has better outcomes. Yes. Yeah. Proponents of gifted education are saying that the better outcome either is because this kid went to gifted programming, or could be even better if he had gone to gifted programming.
Okay.
But the problem is, like, the people who qualify for gifted programs were, like, they're at the upper end of life outcomes we can measure. They are the people who get PhDs. They are the people who have the highest paying jobs. They are the people who have the most stable lives. There isn't really a lot of room for gifted programs to move the needle anyway. These are the people who had the wealth, had the parents with upper middle class values, had the stability, the private tutoring, the extracurriculars, etc. So they're the people who have the best lives. Is this helping? I
think what you're saying is there is a correlation between attainment and outcomes, but that because we're at the upper end, increasing the attainment further isn't likely to further increase the outcomes. Is that what you're saying, or?
Yes, partially. And the gifted programs, as far as we can tell, don't seem to really increase attainment that much. But again, it's very hard to tell because we're at the upper end anyway.
Yeah.
But like it's hard to find a whole lot of natural experiments, but like if you compare kids of similar socioeconomic background and similar ability, the ones who attended gifted programming versus the ones who didn't have a gifted program in their state, they don't seem to do better on the SATs. They don't seem to get into more selective colleges. They don't seem to have more patents to their name, except in some research that has been shown to be to have a selection bias and outcome bias problem.
Ione Bang. Okay.
It's hard to measure like if those same gifted kids would have learned less if they hadn't been in a right, like I don't know, that's
Yeah.
not really showable. You have to compare kids who lived in a state where there wasn't a program, and as far as we can tell, they didn't seem to learn more in it. Is that answering the question?
Yeah, but I mean,
Okay.
going back to like, we there is something that works. Like it might not scale, but like it's that aristocracy tutoring thing, right?
Yes, Eric's aristocratic tutoring, yes, does seem to work.
So something works, but nothing
Yes.
we've tried at scale works.
Correct. The problem with aristocratic tutoring is it's super, super, super resource intensive, right?
Yeah.
So
Like you have to
It's-
hire Plato or whatever, like to dedicate his life to your
exactly
kid.
to one kid,
Yeah.
and so that means a lot of kids don't get Play-Doh, and so it's almost by definition exclusionary. It does not scale
I guess
in any
the
sort of meaningful way.
techno-optimist idea is like get an AI Play-Doh, right, and then give it to each kid.
Yes, yes. So that is what that app you're suggesting.
Yeah, is trying.
I forget.
Mentava.
Mentava. Yes. So that's the what they're trying. Unfortunately, they are focusing on the curriculum. It turns out that maybe there's an option for a relationship with AI. The reason I'm not optimistic about that is when they've done research with, say, toddlers who are absolute sponges for new information, when a person tried to teach them some new words, they learned the new words easily. When they had the exact same text read by someone and then played through an app, even though it was a real person reading it through an app, the children did not learn. There seems to be something about
What's the age
having
of the
a Play-Doh.
child?
Yeah, right. We haven't done that necessarily with older children, but programs like this Mentava have been around for a long time. Baby Einstein was kind of all the rage for a long time, and it spawned countless imitators that were even more about like, we can teach your kids, Khan Academy, all of that kind of stuff has all been around, and it doesn't seem to be producing geniuses.
Have you seen the robot Moxie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That one seems cool. Like just because you mentioned it here, this is Moxie.
Yeah.
I
like
have
this
no
cute
idea how
little-
effective,
Efficacious.
efficacious the robot is, but it, like from the videos, it's cute. It's like
It's
as
super
a kid,
cute.
I would have liked to have this as a toy. You know.
Right. But there seems to be something about another human that we think of as a more experienced, as someone who's had more life experience than us. We seem to be uniquely primed to learn from that in ways that we are not from a robot or AI or an app or something like that. There seems to we just seem wired for learning from someone with a human being with more life experience. They don't have to be smarter than us necessarily, although that helps. But right, but like the amount that we all learn from our parents, even though our parents are idiots, right? We are absolutely primed to learn that way.
Bang redeemed translate from French. I don't know if you want to attempt it. It's a long one.
Oh, I want to attempt it. I want to.
Right,
Let me grab my laptop. Okay, I want to attempt it. All right, let's look at it.
While you set that up, let me catch up with chat some more. Pop Rocks. Julie says we sell 3 gallons of container. Pop Rocks. It's gonna have a bad time. Julie says, Steph, yes, I went to a small school where 3rd and 4th grade was in the same room, and I learned a lot from the 4th graders.
Yeah.
As the teacher, or as the 3rd grader, or as a 4th grader, or
probably as a 3rd grader, right?
Probably, but it's not clear from the message. Theo says, I did once get an A in English class in high school by letting my teacher borrow and burn my CD collection. In all honesty, he pulled me aside and was super frustrated with me because I helped everyone around me pass the class, but I just wouldn't turn in my work. So he said, I know you can do the work, so let me borrow those CDs and we will call it a day. She says, Steph, for instance, I said less money leads to more issues with children learning. Julie says to Tuhil, I was told that in 4th grade, my teacher got frustrated at me. She told my mom she does 1% on the work she does, but only does 50% of the work because the rest of the time she's daydreaming or doodling. I was so bored because I caught in quickly. Julie says, mine was a good mix of that and pretty much raising my 3 siblings. Most teachers were aware that if I fell asleep in class, it was because I had to work night shift to make sure rent was covered and stuff. Only says I'm back from dead. Okay, go ahead.
I'm trying this, but I don't speak very good French. So, selon tous les lois chrono de l'aviation, so according to all the known laws about aviation.
Yeah.
I'm doing okay so far?
Yeah.
There is no... I think of moyenne as being average, but I think it's going to be reason in this sentence. There's no reason why a bee should be capable of flying. Is this about bees?
Yeah, moyenne would call method. Like there's no...
there's no method. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Wait, okay. Why a bee should be capable of flying. Their wings are too small to be... So I can't do sans gros petit. Okay.
I think there's a mistranslation. There's a mistake in the French text.
Okay.
Like it seems ungrammatical to me, that sentence.
Okay. And something else maybe is or something about their body to take off of the sun?
Soul is ground in this case, yeah.
Oh, ground, okay. To take off from the ground. So I'm guessing it's supposed to mean like their wings are too small and their body is too big to be able to take off from the ground.
Yes.
The bee, of course, flies. Something same because bees. So bees of course can fly because unlike humans they don't think that it's impossible.
You're in the right ballpark, but that's not quite what it's saying.
It's not a perfect translation. I actually know this quote and I'm using it to help me here.
Yeah.
It doesn't care. Wow, how does that actually translate?
L'abeille is the bee, bien sûr, of course.
Yeah.
vol, fly, quand même.
But
Quand même is like anyway. Comment, I guess, like,
anyway, yeah,
yeah,
it's kind of slang, yeah.
all the same
Because
maybe is a
bees.
more literal translation.
Yep.
Parce que les abeilles, because the bees, s'en moquent, don't care, like mock, you know, like
Oh,
M-O-C-K.
okay. I'm not familiar with that phrase, so I
Yeah.
had to go around it. Okay.
Ce que les humains, what humans pense est impossible, thinks is
Think it's
impossible.
impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's not terrible.
Yeah. Better than my Japanese when I'm doing these Duolingo, and it's like I get like I see 3 nouns in the sentence, and I'm like, okay, so what does the sentence mean? You know, give me these
Right.
3 nouns.
Exactly.
Judy says state testing is unattainable and makes the student fail on purpose because then that proves that the school needs more money for better teachers. I thought a lot of places, like the amount you get funded, like you get more funding because your students do better in standardized testing.
No, in some cases that is true. In some ways, you actually get more funding if your students do better, which is insane, right?
Well, it's
but
reward the incentive, right? Or
right. It's sometimes called the Matthew effect, which is that the rich get richer. That the students who are already doing well tend to get better off under this system. I think Jubilee is asking you to speak the whole thing in French. I assume she's not asking me with my amazing French
yeah.
to say the whole thing in French.
Selon toutes les lois connues de l'aviation, il n'y a aucun moyen pour une abeille devrait. Yeah, this part also is the grammar is a little weird, but anyway, pour une abeille devrait être capable de voler. Ses ailes sont trop petites pour être son gros petit corps décolle du sol. L'abeille, bien sûr, vole quand même parce que les abeilles s'en moquent, ce que les humains pensent est impossible. Julie says it's 2 heal. Plus, you seem to have turned out relatively well. Teaching your 3 younger siblings probably helped too. Us older siblings always have a higher IQ, I bet. I think there is an effect on higher IQ for older siblings.
Actually, yep. And we think that thing that I was talking about, that it's actually good for gifted kids to teach the younger children, that we think that's part of it. We also think that like your parents are less tired because you're the oldest one, so you get more of their resources. But we think some of it at the very
separated
least.
at birth type of situations, like to isolate family, like parents being tired or teaching the younger kid.
Usually with separated at birth, you're looking at twins, so there isn't an older sibling.
Well, there is I guess there isn't. Yeah, you're right. I was gonna say there is because I'm trying to think of if there's a biological mechanism, right? But they would, because it's from the same egg, I guess.
Right.
Tuhill says to Jubilee, my 2 younger brothers both work at the same company I've been employed for 8 years, so it's cool. The same company is crushing the souls of 3/4 of our family. They're all good kids. Jubilee was the 3rd grader in that anecdote before. So I sort of going on a different topic. I recently started going to this website Quora, where you ask questions and answer the questions and things like that.
Yep.
I've always seen the sites in my search results, right, Quora, but I went and created an account because I just had to reuse my Google account or something like that. It was one of those you click once and you immediately get an account. And I started answering some questions. But the reason I'm bringing it up is there's a French Quora, and I went to that, and I struggled. When they ask these questions in French, I barely understand what they're saying. Trying to see if I can find an example. But also, the other part of it is
the
that
government of Montreal did not consider you fluent in French, correct?
I don't remember that.
They didn't consider you good enough to be able to translate, I should say.
Even that, I'm not even sure what that means. because you don't need a license to translate French to English. Like anyone can just do it, like without government permission.
I think they consider you C1 rather than C2 if you talk in, like what Duolingo uses, the Zephyr standards.
That's possible, but I don't know that I've like ever tested. Like I don't think that there was a test that the government has.
But you took a test and it said you weren't so. Quite. Maybe they made you translate something. How did they do it?
So yeah, so I did work as a translator for a while, and
yes,
I did. And I thought I did an okay job. Like I did struggle in some situations, but it wasn't like the government and.
Oh, I thought it was the government.
And it wasn't like it was a contracting.
So my version of the story is better. So you should just change your life story to fit mine.
So Jubilee deleted all Banks
people in your family.
Yes, because of Quebec slander.
No.
Two says, I thought we
people
were
in your family did do actual translation, though.
My mom is a professional translator. Yes.
I was trying to keep it. I know you get very worried about privacy and stuff, so I was trying to keep it vague.
Yeah, on that topic, I'm trying to figure out how to, like, I don't want to dox myself. So I have something open in Google, and I'm like, how do I show this but without doxing myself?
Mm.
Is there like a word pad thing? Here we go. I can paste this here, surely.
HarmonyBot thinks this game is for babies.
Oh man, it lost all the formatting. Dox your feed on stream. I actually doxed my feed on Discord to someone. Someone was like, I'll donate if you show your feet or something like that. So I took a picture of my feet and then sent it to them on Discord. Two says, I thought we were talking about
sounds horrific.
The French Quarter in NOLA. Was going to say I've got some friends who live down there. I can't understand it either. So this is something, maybe it's what's the word, lived experience thing, where like I don't understand something about the female experience because I didn't grow up as a woman, right? I wasn't raised as a woman and so on, which is like if someone's like into like sexually excited about something about you, like your feet, say, it seems like there's so little, like over the internet, I mean, forget how in person is a separate thing. It's like so harmless that like why should I be bothered that he or she is sexually excited by my feet? Like, yeah, go ahead, look at my feet, look at pictures of my feet, it's fine.
Oh, I actually was more just like trying to picture someone being sexually excited by your feet. Honestly, I wasn't really thinking like.
I think they were memeing, right? But there's this like this idea, like if someone is like if you message a girl, it's like, send me your feet pic, so I can like masturbate to it or something like that. The typical reaction is disgust, right? They're like, I don't like, I'm gonna block this person. I don't want to, like, the image in my mind horrifies me, that sort of thing.
I think the idea of
just like, go ahead, like if it's not like, I'm not going to put a lot of effort into it, but if it's makes you happy and it's easy for me, sure, why not?
I think it's the lack of consent that is weird. I mean, there's probably lots of pieces to it, and it might be different for each individual person. There's certainly something for me about like the objectification of it, like sort of reducing me to body parts. But I think it's also just this sort of weird idea of other people are thinking about you in a way that you did not consent to, that like on some level happens at other times, but like here you're sort of being asked to participate in it. And I think that there's just a visceral feeling, yeah, of like participating in your own non-consent experience that is troubling. Like I definitely can feel a disgust response to that. It's hard to know, right? It's hard to separate out culture
Yeah.
on my experience, but
So, sorry, going back to this topic, the you can when you sign up on what's it called, Quora, you say what languages you speak, and I put English and French, even though I had no interest in. But then it started sending me questions in French to answer. So these are some of the questions I got. Hey, oh
when
man,
a
how do you
person
I pronounce
believes
this name?
these scenarios in the head, is it normal? Is it dangerous? Is it if that is the case, do you have to see a specialist? That's the first one, yes.
There's a person here. I've been in their stream, so let me give them a shout out. But I've never tried to pronounce her name out loud, so now I'm realizing I don't know how to pronounce the name out loud. Edmidame. But welcome in. How was your what's it called? Keep talking and nobody explodes. With Moon, someone named Moon something, I believe they were streaming it. How was that stream go? They redeem hydrate, so I'm gonna take a quick sip here. We're looking at questions in French. Yeah, you said what did you say? Sorry for the translation. I can check here.
When a person believes these scenarios in their head, is it normal? Is it dangerous? If that's the case, do you have to see a specialist?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay.
So that's the question, and then here's the answer, I guess.
Does this person speak French?
I assume so. Like they might be doing slang French, right? Like, and this is what I mean by I struggle sometimes to understand what they're saying. Only says I'm asleep already. Only thanks for stopping by and good night. Have a good sleep.
Sometimes I do it when I'm falling asleep, but I never do it just at their end. And if it helps me sleep, then the other is counting sheep. I don't see anything abnormal in it, and I just read more.
Yeah, basically, you got the gist.
Did I get at all close? Like,
yes,
yikes.
yes, yeah, you did. Sometimes,
Okay.
parfois, I do it before I go to sleep.
Oh, but yeah, okay.
But
of course.
they never go until the end. So I guess he's
They
talking
never
about
go until the
so
end.
when he
Okay,
talks
got
about I have scenarios in my head, I guess they're like thinking of something, like imagining themselves doing something. So I mean, even the question I feel is a bit weird. Like
It is odd, yeah.
like even in English,
Also
like there's
written
no
by someone who, right.
where it's like they're I guess what they're saying is they have weird thoughts and should I go to a psychologist or something like that because of my weird thoughts.
Yeah.
But they don't say what the weird thought is. They just say like I just have weird.
They do not.
Weird thoughts, right? Or they don't even say the thoughts are weird. They just say they have scenarios in their mind. Is that abnormal, and is it dangerous? They're not even necessarily weird thoughts. Is what the question's according to the question. Anyway, so this person is saying sometimes I have scenarios in my head, like I'm imagining things, but I never let them go to the end.
Right.
In fact, this helps me go to sleep. While other people might count sheep.
Oh, alors de autre might count comptant. Okay.
I see nothing abnormal about that. Or on that, I guess, like on that topic.
Right.
And je is probably an I. And then it says read more, which is probably a button you click to read the rest of the answer.
Oh, I see. Okay. I was like, I just read more. Right.
And
Read
then
more by clicking on this
give a
button. Sure, sure.
positive vote, upvote,
Right.
basically. And I guess it means he has currently 2 upvotes on his answer.
Yeah. Okay.
How about this guy?
The next one?
The one that I
You
highlighted
mean?
in blue.
Oh, sorry, I'm watching on Twitch, so it took a while. Okay. Um, money lost in something, an investment can be recouped, or is it lost for good? I don't know what
Yeah, me neither. I don't know what that
securities.
is.
Securities, probably.
Maybe.
Money
But,
lost in
but like, even
some sort
without
of
knowing that
investment.
word, you can like get the
Yeah.
idea of what the sentence is saying, right?
Right.
And this is apparently the answer here.
Recoup your crypto money and pirate guide to investment expert. We are a group of professionals.
Yep, exactly.
Read more. Must know a vote.
But yeah, this is like, see, here, how about this one?
Okay. If Elon Musk doesn't have a salary at Tesla, how would he obtain the indemnities and buy? I should buy he the actions. How the person Patel can do the same with his own company.
Yeah. And I'm basically at the same level as you. I don't know what indemnities is. I don't know what actions is. Patel is like, would be able to. How would a person be able to do the same thing with their own enterprise?
Okay.
How about this guy?
Does antimatter exist?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess like this is basically at the limit of my French, the Quora thing, and it seems like you're at basically the same level as me. So
I have noticed I'm doing Spanish on Duolingo, and in the past I have done Italian, and I have noticed that those both help me. You know, I guess kind of are refreshing French that I learned long ago. But sometimes, I mean, it's not perfect, and sometimes it leads me astray. But it definitely is helping me with some of it. So I think I'm actually like slightly getting better at French by doing
that's
Spanish.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like, I can communicate with Spanish people like barely by using French.
Right.
In the same way that like this maybe I don't know if an English speaker could see this and realize they're talking about antimatter. You can, like, and they're talking about exist here. Like there's like French and English are kind of similar. It's that you can pick out some words like that, and so French and Spanish are also kind of similar in that you can pick out some words like that.
Right. That being able to pick out words, those are called cognates. They look similar enough that you can kind of figure out what it is. Sometimes I can't tell how much progress I'm actually making in a language versus how much I'm just using my strong language skills and cognates to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll try and like ask someone who doesn't speak the language at all and be like, "Can you like, am I fooling myself? Can you understand
you
this?"
need to ask someone who's also at the same language level as you, right? Like not French level, but like cognate level. or else it's not a fair comparison, you know?
Right. Right.
Because then if they don't know, then you don't know if it's, you still don't know if it's because you know French or if it's because you're good at cognates.
Right. I do like try to calibrate that a little bit. I don't just like stop people at a gas station. Say, can you read this?
What are you saying about people at gas stations?
That some of them, yeah. I'm trying to say that
that
gasoline vapors are bad.
Are idiots, is what you're saying. You're making a political statement on my stream.
Yep. Please delete this.
When I went to the English Quora, so like the French Quora was interesting because I was practicing my French a bit, right? And I'm like, oh man, this, like, you know, I can get the gist, but like I if I wrote an answer, they could tell that I'm not a native French speaker, because
I'm not sure all of them are native French speakers.
Well, like the person who was like, I dream about this scenario sometimes or whatever. I think that's like, it sounds like a very authentic French.
Okay.
And it's like not how I would write. And so I think he or she would see what I wrote and then say, oh yeah, this is, you know, this person doesn't speak native French. Because I would like use so-called Anglicisms, Englishisms. Like I would, like, you know, this is, I would take what I say in English, change all the words to French,
just translate it,
and then put that in, when that's not how. Like Patel was a good example in like capable dash she, like meaning like a person, how would she do this? You know, like like when I translate back to English, it sounds weird, right? Like when I say
it does,
and it's because like I took the words in French and I translate to English. And it doesn't sound natural. It doesn't sound like the way an English speaker would speak. So same thing. But anyway, to English Quora now. So I went to English Quora and I say like, I'm interested in physics. I'm interested in math. I'm interested in economics. You know, like, so it shows me all these questions.
Oh, okay.
And like, I am despairing for humanity because these questions are so dumb. You know? like these are the worst questions I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah. Quora is not good for making you feel like we've made great strides in education and are raising the next generation of geniuses. It's rough, man. Quora is one of those things that kind of gets me because, like, if you ever like search for them in a site or whatever, you make a very quick account. And then it kind of sends you teasers. It's like, you're probably interested in this topic. And then you'll click on them and the answer will be terrible, but you're like, surely there's some other good question.
No, the thing is, even the questions are terrible sometimes.
Even the questions are awful. It is really problematic. Humanity is doomed. That's what I'm trying to say. Humanity is hanging out at a gas station.
The thing is, like, the ones in my email aren't so bad, but I think they're selected because they have the most upvotes or something like that, right? Like they're emailing me, here are the top rated questions,
right?
But like when you're just on the site, I think it's sorted by new by default. So you see like unanswered questions because they want you to answer them.
Yeah,
and they're just like,
they're not good.
The person is missing something conceptually. You can tell, like, you know, just by even the question they're asking. And I'm having trouble even coming up with examples now of this. But on Brainscape, which I mentioned before, is the trivia flashcard thing. They asked like some of the things. I might give up on Brainscape because I'm also like, I don't like the trivia. It's weird because like flashcards are specifically about exercising your memory, I guess, right? It's not about like critical thinking or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so trivia is like a good match for that, because trivia is also like, you just memorize the answer. It's not like you can figure out what the capital of Australia is, you know, by thinking about it.
Right.
But it's also, in a way, it's the form of knowledge I value the least. Just memorizing facts.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that comes to mind right now is it said like, how do you measure sound? And then I'm like, do you mean like like decibels? Do you mean hertz? Like what like there's different ways you can measure sound, like, or
Right.
like, and so I show, flip the flashcard and say decibel is the answer. I'm like, okay, but like it bugged me, like this is
Yeah.
I don't like that the question was malformed and or ambiguous or shows like a lack of fundamental concept, the author of the question.
Right.
So I don't know if I'll stick with Brainscape, but for now I'm goofing off on it, just like so that I can patch a few of my holes in geography and history and all of that stuff. But I might end up like not caring, and because it's also asking me, it said like I forget the exact wording, but like he's the Zen master of basketball and led to these teams to Hall of Fame, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, I really don't care, like I could memorize this, but I can't imagine it ever coming up and being useful.
Ever coming up unless you were at a trivia event
competition,
and trying to win.
Yeah.
Phil, somebody, right? Phil Jackson.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
I have been using an app called Kinu.
Okay.
KINNU.
Okay.
And what it does is there's a whole bunch of different subjects that you can learn, and you read like 2 or 3 pages, short pages, like from a textbook.
Okay.
About the topic, and then it asks you questions, and it's using spaced repetition and questions, and you don't know beforehand exactly which ones the questions are going to be, and then if you forget it, it makes you answer it again at the end, and then it's just using spaced repetition and all of that. I like it because it isn't just trivia, right? Like you're getting the story.
Right.
And the one thing that I often think about vis-a-vis these conversations that I'm having is it's clear that the text is AI generated, and it also is interspersed with drawings, and it's clear that all the visuals are like they actually say AI generated,
right.
And some of them are fine, and some of them, like I was learning about the Ottoman Empire, and it it was like AI generated photo of Selim the Grim, and it showed him, and he had 3 hands holding onto this flag. I was just like,
That's what he looked like.
Exactly, like obviously. So I like it for like better than some of those other trivia things, but definitely has some hilarious glitches. And like for the Ottoman Empire, it's great. It's kind of, you read a little bit of the story, and it's fantastic. But I'm also doing ecology and geology, and it's a lot, because it's AI generated, it's a lot of babble. I think in the AI world it's called yapping. It just keeps saying, like, over and over again, it's really important for us to know that, so that we know how to respond to climate change and a changing world, right? Like there's just a lot of, by knowing this, it helps scientists know this other thing. It's, and I'm
I wasn't familiar with yapping, the term, but I there is this sense that there's like a style that AI writes in that becomes a little recognizable.
Exactly.
Because it's like mediocre high school student essay writing.
Yes, exactly. Like it's definitely padding it out.
Let me give the introduction, then I see the main point, then I repeat the main point in the conclusion, like.
And I say, in conclusion, this is really important for Americans to know about.
And the thing is, I encountered that a lot in the Quora answers. Like I can see that people are just, they take the question, put it into ChatGPT,
just put it into ChatGPT,
and that's the answer.
And for some reason, like that's it satisfying or something for them to do. Like I'm just not sure how.
Farming points, I guess. I don't know what their end goal is.
Yeah, like what's your end goal? Like what's step 3 with the profit? Like. What are you getting?
I'm not sure, but I it's like I haven't investigated Quora much because I sort of lost faith on like fuck this site, but it seemed like
I think That's how a lot of people feel. Yeah.
you can get paid in Quora if your answers are good enough. There's like
You
some
are
sort of
kidding
revenue
me.
sharing thing.
Oh God.
So probably that's
Interesting.
what their goal is, I guess.
To eventually
Become
have
a
ChatGPT.
like a you're a Twitch affiliate or something. You're a Quora
Yeah.
affiliate, and then you get
Oh,
paid for answering
interesting.
questions or something. I guess I don't know. I didn't look too deeply
Wow.
into it.
Right.
Yeah, I think one of the things was like this. One of the questions like, is it a good idea to like is a good long-term strategy to invest in medical stocks or something like that, right? And so the answer I'm pretty sure was
Like-
ChatGPT
Right.
because it was like investing in medical stocks can be a good long-term idea, but there are a few things to keep in mind, and then like
Right.
and then like 3 paragraphs, like
Yeah.
first thing is this, second. Whereas
Yeah.
and then I had an answer, and mine is like, I forget the exact wording, but I said basically like you're asking if it's a good idea or not, and the way to evaluate that is in terms of relative to what other idea.
Right.
Like if you get if you're playing a video game, you get 100 points. Is that good? Well, if other people get 10 points, then yeah, that's very good. If other people get 1,000 points, then no, that's not very good. And if you just invest in the S&P 500 index, which is the beginner strategy, like the recommended, you will do better than if you invest in medical stocks historically. So probably not, unless you have a special reason to think medical stocks will do well in the future. It's probably not a good idea. So that's my answer. And you can see how it's like
on to Quora.
like it's a completely different style
Yeah,
of writing than
style,
the ChatGPT
yeah.
style answer, right? Like
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I can tell, like, again, like the ones from the Ottoman Empire are just scraping other content sites, probably like old textbooks that are now in the no longer copyright protected or something like that, and that seems fine. But the ones on more, I don't know, more social sciences, just yikes. Also, most of the topics are history and literature and philosophy and stuff like that, which seems great. But a lot of the topics are also like intermittent fasting or how to do well in college or like topics that you're just sort of like, huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Does that actually count as Yeah.
I guess it's like difficult to find content for these. So that one of the reasons they're stooping quote unquote to AI.
Yep.
And the other thing is like just any topic you got, we'll throw it in and give me anything.
Right. Exactly. Anything at all. Like some of them is like the science of dating. You're like, okay. I did find recently a open source textbook site called OpenStax.
Okay.
Have you been to that? It's STAX.
No, I don't think I've seen this. I put it on the
And
screen.
they don't have a ton, but these are literally open source textbooks. If you want one printed, you have to pay like $20 to $60 or something like that, depending on the thing. But if you just want to look at it online, you can, and they're written by, the same people who write regular textbooks, but they're free, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
They have some on like, world history, for example, if you wanted to learn world history. If you're like, oh, I really want to learn physics and I want to teach myself, I thought that's a neat resource.
I'll check it out. Put it on my list of things. Things
to check out.
Yeah. I've been doing better in terms of depression recently, and now I'm feeling that lack of time of like there's too much stuff I want to do and I don't have enough time to do it, like learn calculus so I can learn quantum physics and
I feel that way all the time.
And then like now
I think that's
I'm
one of
these
the
trivia sites, and now I gotta learn like history, you know, and
now you gotta learn the frickin' capital of Australia. How are you gonna have time to do that?
There's this, I don't know, is it because I'm getting old that I value history more than I did when I was a kid? Like there's this, is that a bias that's observable in general people?
That's actually a great question. I do not know the answer to that. I also have noticed that I have become more curious about those types of topics. Maybe it's
as a teenager especially. You think like adults don't know anything, so you know, like
adults are stupid. Why would I want to know all the ways they screwed up? Yeah,
and then so in particular, like, you know, what do I care what people did in the past? Like, what, there's nothing to learn from them, right? Like, it's like the empires and wars and things like that. Like, it doesn't matter. Who cares?
I think. And here's my
now with World War III coming in, I'm like, and you know, I'm like, okay, so let me know a little bit about war and how it went last time around.
Yeah. So I was going to say my off-the-cuff theory is that the way that it's related to age is that you've had many more years to experience some consequences of your knowledge gap.
Right.
I'm using consequence like super loosely, like you don't get like punished or whatever, but you just realize like, oh, I really don't know that, and it came up more than I thought it would. Right? Like when you're hanging out with your friends, World War II never comes up when you're a teenager, unless you're in that war. And even if World War II comes up, the French and Indian War definitely never comes up. And so you're just like, this is super irrelevant. And by the time you're our age, like maybe you've heard enough references that you're like, God damn it, it would actually be kind of helpful if I knew what had happened in the French and Indian War, especially if you're living in an era where war that knowledge might be particularly, exactly.
Because people like one of the ways to like relate this to real life, I guess, or current day events, they're talking about like the oh man, I don't want to say the wrong things so I look like a total idiot, but there's the Russian Ukraine one. And there's one in the Middle East also, right? That's starting to happen. And then there's like China is like getting more aggressive and looking to ally with Russia maybe, but it's tentative still. And then and they were saying like World War II wasn't like today we declare World War II and now it happens, right? It was these smaller conflicts that's made things more and more unstable and bubbled up until everyone like gradually got pulled in. Like the U.S. wasn't part of World War II at the beginning. Like it wasn't just like World War II starts. You know, every country like you guys are in this team, you guys are in this team, go. You know.
Yeah, and it's not like they called it World War II. Like they weren't like, oh, we're having World War II today.
Yeah,
we call it that now.
Like there's small wars that are happening, and then like a country that didn't want to get involved suddenly gets pulled in for whatever reason. And so the idea is like there's similarities with the situation today, right? Where there's a bunch of wars going on, and U.S. is like, well, I don't really want to get involved, but something might happen, and then they have to get involved, and then and then that's where World War III starts.
But luckily, we've prevented it during this chat.
Hopefully.
Right? Isn't that what it said?
The other thing on the smaller scale, on the smaller scale is I saw a TikTok where someone was, so I don't know if you know how TikTok works, but someone can post a TikTok and then someone can, I forget what the word is, but they can like respond to it by quoting the TikTok. So you see the original TikTok first, then you see the person's response to it.
Okay.
So the original TikTok is like this guy, like sunglasses and a pickup truck with like rifles in the passenger seat or something like that, and he's grinning like to the camera, and it's like, I forget the exact wording, but it's like how I feel knowing that I'm going to win the Texas succeeding from the U.S. War or whatever, right? Implying that he's, I guess, a Texan who wants to succeed from the U.S. and there's going to be a civil war and he's going to kick America's ass.
Right.
I think is the message that guy's trying to send with his TikTok. So then the guy responds to that TikTok, and he says like he's a historian, and he's talking about how it's exactly what you were saying earlier on the stream, how like in the old days people were like, oh, war's going to be this fun adventure, you know, I'm going to win, and that's what this guy is like. That's the mentality that this guy has. But like going in a war against the U.S., it's not going to be a good time.
It's not going to be fun. Yeah.
So that's also like this is,
you know, how I was saying,
learning
like,
history might help give you perspective on things.
Yeah. I think there's also just a sense of increasing accumulation of knowledge and decreasing time as you get older. Like, I just feel like there's so much to know, especially for those of us who our cultural capital has been knowing things.
Yeah, our sense of value of identity. Like,
yeah,
I'm so great because I know so much, you know?
Yeah, my contribution to the world was never going to be having a lot of money or being the kindest person or going the most places, or I don't even know. But I guess it's like an attempt to like hoard cultural capital in the form of knowledge before I die. I'm not sure.
That's interesting. I don't like, that's not my motivation. I think like for some reason I find learning things intrinsically pleasurable.
I think I do too, but I've been reading Pierre Bourdieu and his theories of cultural capital, and how you think that it's interesting, but it might just be, you might be fooling yourself, and you might
it's social
just be
signaling
trying
or
to.
something like that.
Yeah, it's social signaling. You're signaling your relevance, your fitness, which may become more important as you get older and sort of maybe become less relevant.
Yeah. I question that, at least for me, because like if we weren't streaming, like if I hadn't become a Twitch streamer, I don't think I would have ever told anyone that I'm brushing up on calculus.
Right, and I don't necessarily tell people either, but I don't know that we always know our motives, right? There are people who hoard money and maybe don't ever tell anyone how much they have or how rich they are, but that doesn't necessarily mean they weren't programmed to hoard money as a social signal, right? It doesn't take away the fact that money is a social signal just because you maybe aren't quote unquote advertising it.
I guess. I mean,
right? Like even if you take away its signaling function,
your
you may think of it as valuable.
You're doing it for social signaling. Well, I guess I don't know how to describe it, like your genes or something like that, or doing it for social signaling purposes. But because it's
even though you're not signaling it.
Yeah. Like it. Yeah. I don't like it. Maybe it becomes unfalsifiable, that hypothesis. You know, like I don't know.
It's a possibility. I'm open to that. I find Bourdieu's and other similar cultural critics interesting and challenging. Like I can't always tell, like, because my first response to them is usually like, that's preposterous, and then later I think about it a bunch more and I'm like, oh, I think there might be something to that. So and it's very challenging work in terms of just literally trying to read it and understand it. So I'm open to the idea that maybe that's not the case, and this might be an like you said, like unfalsifiable, etc. I'm open to that, but I'm not sure.
Well, the other thing is something that became very salient to me recently is just because something is unfalsifiable doesn't mean it's false.
Right.
Like
that's also a bummer.
I was arguing about something about like instrumental convergence of goals with AI.
Yeah.
And like he said something, and then I said, like, I gave an argument that's, I'm like, this is tautological. It's obviously true, you know. Like there's like, if you follow step 1, step 2, step 3, there's nothing, right? And there's no way out. And he's like, that's unfalsifiable, right? And I'm like, you're right. It is unfalsifiable. Like it's, but that means it's true. Is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Right. That is Euclidean reasoning. So Euclid wrote a book that was very, very influential about reasoning from sort of natural laws that, like, you know, if you just have to, like, accept that axiomatically this is true. And it influenced many politicians. Abraham Lincoln used to carry Euclid around with him everywhere he went, and kind of used Euclidean reasoning to in his Lincoln-Douglas debates. So it has a long history, this sort of like natural law reasoning of sort of like, well, if you accept, you know, if you look on your fingers and you add 2 and 2, now you have 4 fingers up, you know, if we go from there. Yeah. But Lincoln eventually abandoned it because he realized that it wasn't always persuasive to people.
Yeah, that's so depressing to me. I recently read an essay about this, which I also found interesting, which is the idea, like, is it good to be persuaded by rational arguments or not? Just because, like, if someone's a better arguer, debater than you are, doesn't mean everything they say is true, you know, but they'll give you rational arguments for why what they say is true. So you have to use other sources of, like, what's their motive, you know, how much do they gain if you accept their belief, how much do you lose, things like that, right? Like, so the idea being, like, it just because, you know, like don't accept rationality above everything else, and I guess in a sense, like there's this meta game that you then have to play to analyze the probability that the statement is true, that or a claim is true that someone's giving you.
That is sort of depressing. Are you familiar with the argument in Enigma of Reason?
No. Enigma of Reason? Is that what you said?
The Enigma of Reason.
Yeah, no, I'm not familiar with that.
All right, we will save that for next time.
All right, let me write it down. Enigma of Reason. Because I don't know what this is about. Wait. How much time you got left? I want to show one more thing.
2 minutes.
No, never mind. I'll save it for next time then. I'll give you a teaser. And then we can talk about it next time.
Okay.
Here, ChatGPT. What is the color of the square in the middle of the Rubik's Cube in each of these 2 pictures?
Oh God, you're not going to tell me it's the same.
ChatGPT says this is yellow, and the first image is yellow, the second image is blue. And this is even more impressive to me. This ChatGPT falls for visual illusions. It can see the raw pixel data, right? It knows what the pixels. But it
doesn't though, right? Like, it doesn't try to reason. It tries to use natural language to.
So here's, like, let's say
statistically guessed.
Let's say I'm a dumb AI, okay? You're asking me, like, what's the color of the square of the Rubik's Cube? So I'm like, looking at this, I say, okay, this is a Rubik's Cube, I recognize it. It's asking me for the middle square, so this is the middle square. I recognize that, I understand that. It's asking me what the color is. Okay, so let me get the pixel value. This is gray.
I don't think it does that, though.
This is gray. Like, for it to say that this one's yellow and this one's blue, it has to understand that a blue tint, like there's a blue tint applied which filters some wavelengths which causes this to look yellow. Like, it has to model the like. So the reason optical illusions work in humans is because we don't see the raw pixels, right? We don't see the raw pixels, but we do, like, when the raw pixels hits our eyes, we then build a model of the world. Yeah. And that's what we perceive. So is that what
I
ChatGPT
don't-
is doing? Like it's building a model
don't
of the world
think
from the
so.
image? Like what?
I think it uses some sort of prediction, right?
No, but it has to be based on this data that's being fed. Like it can't like this is not a prediction uncorrelated with these images, right?
I don't know. I
Has to,
truly
like-
don't know.
Like you give it this
I
image,
don't have that.
and then it has to look at the
Find
image.
out so that we
And
can know for next week.
Yes, no, I do
What
have the,
is the actual
I have the
answer?
full paper actually,
Oh, great. Excellent.
which is
So
why I say like
find out.
more than
Yeah.
2 minutes. But we'll save it for next time. Yeah.
Okay. What are they the same color?
I don't I don't remember. But the
They
paper
do not look like the same color.
the paper specifically does this illusion, right? Which we know it's the same color. So so we'll get into details for next time, I guess.
Okay. Excellent.
But to me, like that completely blew my mind. Like I would not expect like you have like to fall for a visual illusion, you have to have the human visual cortex. Like it doesn't work on raw pixel data. Optical illusions, right? So the fact that ChatGPT falls for optical illusions is mind blowing. Like what? That's like saying it's like saying
Your reaction
that,
is cracking me up. Oh my
you know
god.
the only way you can have like only sentient self-aware or things think about philosophy or something like that, and then you see something that thinks
Right.
about philosophy, and then you're like, wait, that means it's
Why
sentient and
is the
self-aware.
toaster thinking- Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
This is the cat parade.
I assume that what the paper will say is yes, ChatGPT is modeling the world according to human brains. That'll be fun to find out.
All right, so thank you everyone for tuning in. That was the Just Chatting stream. My regular schedule is
Who even knows what that was?
Every Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. That's about 3 hours ago in your time zone. We have the
We do whatever this
Thursday
was.
stream, which is it's a Just Chatting stream. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Or we talk about whatever. Like I get a list of every week I just gather things which I find are interesting, put in a list, and then we call up Steph and then we say, hey, let's go down the list and talk about these things. Every Saturday, 6 p.m. Pacific. That's about 4.5 hours ago in your time zone. I have the solo Saturday stream where I play a random game from my review queue, and I did it this Saturday that just passed. I restarted doing my Saturday streams again, so hopefully I'll continue that trend and do it this Saturday as well. We got the Discord. Join the Discord for updates to the schedule and any announcements for off-schedule streams. I believe this coming Tuesday there's going to be an off-schedule stream with Yami where we're going to play Beyond Horizons. Is it Beyond? No, it's Between Horizons, which is a space sci-fi mystery game, solving murder mysteries, that sort of stuff. Should be a lot of fun. And yeah, I think that's it. So thanks again everyone for tuning in. I'll let you guys enjoy the rest of the Cat Parade while I look for someone to raid.
Bye, everyone.
Ya se alistan las comparsas de los barrios tan queridos y se elige nuestra reina. ¡Qué preciosa es carnaval! En las playas de mis ríos, los amigos reunidos.
Todos con gran armonía, disfrutando el carnaval.
Well. Let's go.